Welcome back to the Fast Life Podcast, guys. Hope you had a great weekend. I did. Hung out with a lot of homies, got mildly drunk, and we kind of podcast together. Don't know if we're going to release that one. We talked a lot of shit, drank a lot of beer, couldn't really decipher who was who. It's not good to have 7 people on a podcast, man. It just doesn't work out. But anyway, like I said, hope you guys had a great weekend. I hope you guys are ready to fucking knock some workout this week. I know I'm telling myself I'm ready. I don't know if I am. Yeah, dude, I'm ready to get over this slump, man. God, this summer slump is what it's been, man. But it's like I see the light at the end of this tunnel, the end of this long list of projects that's been really just dragging and dragging. Some of them are projects that, like, it's not really up my wheelhouse, or I don't even know what that's the right term to use. It's just not something that I'm super jazzed about doing, and I usually, I guess that some of these projects I took on before I came on to this thought process, only doing jobs that I'm, doing my thing, and I'm happy to do them. And I kind of took these jobs on a little bit earlier on before I kind of developed that mentality of how I want to do things. But needless to say, I don't want to do anybody wrong as far as customers, so I'm trying to give them the best that I have. And it's just been a time-consuming thing trying to find the creativity in a style that's not something that I'm interested in. It's just weird, man. I know it probably sounds like a huge complaint, and for the most part it is, but it's just been dragging. It's been dragging for 2 months now, and it's causing delays on other projects. And all you painters out there know what that's like whenever one project, spills over into the next project's time frame, and it just kind of barrel rolls from there. So needless to say, that's why we stopped taking in projects back in April. So, I'm just trying to wrap up those projects that's been prior to that. And it's like, I know I get phone calls, I get hit up on Instagram, I hit up on our website, and people are like, man, I'm interested in doing this project. And, it's just like, I'm scared to say when I can do it, so it's kind of a weird situation, man. And I don't mean to use this podcast to be a complaint thing, but it kind of is sometimes, right? Yeah, man, it's just tough, man. I need to get these baggers done. It's 2 of them. I need to take them to NorCal, and I need to do it before the end of this month because I have projects that I need to start on this month for other people. So fuck me, right? Anyway. Yeah, man, I want to thank Texas Performance MC, man. I hope you guys checked out the podcast we released this weekend with Mark. Hope you guys dug that. Just kind of a last-minute thing. Probably not the best idea to go over, hang out with Mark for 4 hours and then do a podcast. But, we did it anyway. Fuck it. He'll be on here plenty more times forever. So, weird. Anyway, Texas Performance MC, Cedar Park, Texas. Check him out. Full dyno tuning and performance shop. Located just north of Austin, Texas in Cedar Park. Check them out, texasperformancemc.com, as well as on Instagram. Also want to thank Paint Up for Metal Flake for continuing to support us and everything we do. PaintHuffer.com if you want to get set up with all those flaky-ass flakes that they got and dope-ass pearls. And even if you need to get some custom paint products like FBS tapes and other things they sell, check them out. PaintHuffer.com, you can order there. If you want to just check out some of the artists that are on Team Paint Huffer, go to Paint Huffer Metal Flake on IG. Check them out there. Look at all the cool paint jobs, all the rad things that are being done in this vast world of custom paint. It's pretty awesome. I want to thank Horsepower Inc. and HorsepowerInc.net again for continuing to support this podcast. They're doing rad shit over there, as I say every time I tell you about them. I really dig it, man. I like those dudes. I like the fact that they're kind of holding it down up there in the, I don't know what that would be, the Great Lakes area or Midwest area. I don't know what that's considered, but HorsepowerInc.net, Horsepower Inc. on Instagram, and Horsepower Inc. Indy on Facebook. It's only taken me like 4 months to get that, down to where I can say that without tongue twisting myself. They're known for their big bore throttle bodies. If you're there locally, then you can take advantage of the dyno tuning and in-house performance for V-twin motorcycles that they offer. I know they're getting ready to launch an exhaust system or exhaust systems for Harley models, as well as they continue to have throttle bodies and shit. So anyways, thank you guys. Hope your dudes are doing good. Well, it's awesome. Anyway, hard drive. I want to thank Hard Drive Parts on Instagram for continuing to support this podcast as well. Like I said before, if you're not a dealer or if your preferred dealer is not a dealer, just share the word, share it. It's like the gospel of hard drive, right? hdtwin.com. There's a link. You can get set up as a dealer, start peddling those products to all us Harley nerds out there. Do yourself a favor, get set up with them. It's not going to cost you anything as long as you're an actual business. We don't want none of those fucking garage hustlers out there trying to, take money out of people, doing it the right way, getting a shop, getting a storefront, doing all that good stuff. Anyway, hdtwin.com, get set up, support those dudes out there trying to build their empire. You know what I mean? Check them out. Hard Drive Parts on Instagram, hdtwin.com. Whew, that was over. Anyway, like I said again, thank you guys for continuing to check us out. We're it's this podcast has kind of become like, when I'm super stressed out or not being productive, it's like I can jump and doing these podcasts with somebody, whether it's a local friend like Mike or, catching Scott, who is on this podcast from Simpson while he's in town. It makes it easier and it makes me feel like at least I'm being productive in some kind of way, because it's a super, super depressing feeling of showing up to work every day and just not getting shit done. You know what I mean? So I'm trying, guys. And thank you guys for continuing to check us out, man. It really does mean a lot. It means a lot. I'm repeating myself. Anyway, thank you guys. Once again, repeating myself, for checking us out and digging what we do. We've got on this episode Scott from Simpson Motorcycle Helmets. We're talking about some of the new products coming out, talking about some of the things that they did this year, and talking about some of the shit we're going to try to continue to do, or they're going to try to continue to do. So enjoy it, and thank you guys again.
Hey guys, you ready to let the dogs out?
Fast Life Podcast.
Sweet, we're doing it.
All right, perfect.
What's up, man?
How's it going?
I'm good.
Right on.
How's hell, it's been a long year for you. It's been a long year for us, and it's not even over yet, huh?
Right. Yeah, we've still got a few things going on this year. So just kind of coming off of a June where I left my house, I think May 30th, and I got back on July 3rd. So it's a little rough.
How much of a pain in the ass is it being gone so long while you're, like doing all these cross-country events where you're, working shows and events and whatnot?
It's difficult to have a family.
Yeah.
I got some friends that help me out, keep an eye on my house and things like that. But that's why I guess I'm not married. I mean, it's not conducive. People don't understand. I mean, from the outside looking in, a lot of times when you're going to a lot of the events, they look like parties.
Yeah.
And they kind of can be, but if that's your job, it's what you do and it's work. I mean, so it can be hard on relationships for sure.
That is one crazy thing about it when you're, like, say, for instance, this year Sturgis. Like, I really wanted to be there. Would have been 5 in a row. I'm really bummed I missed it. But a lot of people don't look at Sturgis like work. And
right.
I'm like, man, I feel like I'm missing out on opportunities by not being there.
Right.
It's the same thing with any show. Like, I hate I missed Born Free this year. I hate I missed a lot of things. And it's like a lot of people look at that as a luxury, or it is, but like a vacation. And it's
sure.
like, no, it's not.
Sure.
Man. Like, I need to go promote myself and all that kind of good stuff.
Well, it's a lot of people look at people who have jobs like us or lives like us, and they can only dream, and for them that they dream that it's the coolest life in the world. But no matter what you do, it is work.
Yeah.
And we have to get to places and get set up and be business minded and conduct business and make contacts and make friends and you're still there. You've got to be the cool guy, but you got to have a business-minded head about you. You can't just be there at the party.
You're also the glue or the link between the cool kids on the Dynas and the FXRs and the Harley industry and the other industry, and the corporate world that you work for. So.
Right. That's true. I've got to balance that, and there's a lot of things that make complete sense and are logical to both sides.
Yeah.
But I'm the guy in the middle that's got to balance that, and and it's not always easy. But the company's a fantastic company, and they realize that we're based in racing, and that's very, very different than motorcycle. Some of the products are similar, but the people are different. Motorcycles are a little edgier. Motorcycles actually are much bigger than racing. But we're just part of a small segment of motorcycling. We're not making motocross helmets right now or anything like that. So, but there is still a balance that you have to work on.
It makes it weird, like, thinking I'm 35 and I'm like, man, if I ever built this company that I have into something crazy, and then I had to hire younger people to help me stay hip and relevant in the industry, and like relinquishing the control, like. I just feel like the older I get, the more stubborn I become. So.
Right, sure. Well, and I'm not exactly the youngest guy in the world, and I've also got to I got to find balance there. I've got to understand that a lot of our customers, a lot of our target audience is quite a bit younger than me, and they have a completely different perspective. I'm not necessarily the old school biker crowd that was the go to Daytona for 10 or 15 days, go to Sturgis for a week. I totally get that, like, the younger crowd, they've got a couple days off work at most, and that's why these shows like Born Free, Giddy Up, Smoke Out, that are just a couple days, that's why they're just killing it. It's just that's what people have time to do now.
We were talking at lunch about how, like, a lot of these shows, like Sturgis and the Camp Out, they start as something so small and easy, like, hey man, let's just go have coffee down the street, and then it turns into, what was it? You know a lot about the like how some of those, like, what is it?
Like Smoke Out. Smoke Out's this guy named Edge. He worked for the horse, and they basically got together in Pigeon Forge, I think 20 years ago, some guys, and they were doing basically a breakfast, and it kind of grew to more and more and more people, and then they decided to go to Rockingham now, and it's a great party. It's a fantastic get together, a lot of very cool people, but it's kind of different. People want to grow those kind of things. You hear different people who realize how much motorcycling brings into their community, so they want to build something like that. But it's very, very tough. They'll call us. I mean, we have opportunities to do 1,000 shows a year probably, and we have to turn the majority of them down, the vast majority. They realize they need vendors and things there that will bring riders in. Of course, we look at it, we don't want to go there unless there's tons of riders there, so it's a catch-22. What they don't realize is the majority of big, giant events, whether it's Laconia, whether it's Sturgis, whether it's Daytona, people initially came there for the racing, and they were there solely for the racing. And then it became a big, giant party and a spectacle, and then for years, the crowds have been based to go there for the party and the spectacle, the bands, just the get-together, the camaraderie. And now, in those cases, the racing has taken a back seat, and nobody really pays attention to the Daytona racing. I hate to say that, but the large percentage of the crowd down there does not go to races. Same. It's kind of cool. I think that there's been some resurgence for the flat track at Sturgis. But it's not like it used to be. Laconia again, the racing is just, I don't even know if they're doing that again.
Where's Laconia based out of? It's northeast, right?
Yeah, it's New Hampshire.
New Hampshire,
I think it's
okay.
New Hampshire area, right? Maybe it's I think it's right on the coast. I've never been to that particular one. Yeah.
I just want to get more friends up there. I only got like 2 or 3 that I know of. I got a few in like Pennsylvania area, but like you need a lot of friends like for riding trips to go up there. Like I need a lot of couches to crash on. So it's like I don't want to. I go west. I got somebody in every city. You know what I mean?
Sure. It's Kevin Dunworth is a good friend of mine, Loaded Gun Customs, and he's around the industry a whole bunch. He's like one of the most fantastic guys you want to meet, and there's so many people like that that after you're doing this a long time, you get to meet these people. And I try not to be a couch crasher, but every once in a while, it's really nice, and it's great to have a meal that's not in a restaurant, especially if you're away from home for a whole month.
Mm-hmm.
If somebody will make a home cooked meal for you, it's a godsend.
It's worth
right,
it, yeah.
right, absolutely.
So at the beginning of this year, when we did the first podcast, you were gearing up to go to Mama Tried. Like, how was that this year? And then you also didn't. So Mama Tried's right in Milwaukee, right?
Right.
And so they do a lot with Harley itself up there, correct? Or
Yeah. So Mama Tried is sponsored by Harley Davidson. They had a new venue this year, a place called the Rave, which was an incredible venue. And a lot of these events now, it's location. You can't put them in a civic center and have the same vibe.
Yeah.
So it's all about the it's all about the venue,
the atmosphere. Yeah.
And it wasn't. It was challenging in some spots where it was on the fourth floor, and it was this giant old 100-year-old ballroom that was really cool, and like every band that's ever been anybody has played there. Mm-hmm. And it even had those little opera boxes like you saw on I saw on like the Muppets where the old guys hung out. Those were around the top edge, and the lighting was really cool. It was really just different, and it was having motorcycles parked on the floor of what normally would be like a ballroom where you'd see people in gowns and tuxedos. And it was a challenge with, we had 100-year-old freight elevator to move bikes and freight up and down. And some of the bikes, drag bikes and long choppers wouldn't fit, and they had to be hand carried up 4 flights of stairs.
Oh, shit.
Right, exactly. It was very tough. So that doesn't take away from the event. The event was absolutely packed. It's cold there in February. I think it's February or beginning of March. Right.
Yeah.
And it's just it's really cool people. We met a ton of friends there. It was really funny. I don't know the timing exactly, but we might have done this podcast 30 or 45 days prior to that.
Yeah.
And I had a lot of fun on the first podcast, but I didn't really know how much traction that would get or what would happen. And I really was surprised the very, very first day I'm at Mama Tried. I'm talking to somebody, and he says, "Hey, you're that guy from that podcast." And I was like, wow, okay, wow, that's kind of cool, to be recognized like that. So that was kind of fun. Mm-hmm. But the event itself is fantastic. We can't wait to go back. It's great people, great crowd, incredible motorcycles. I mean, and a mixture of just a little bit of everything. Mm-hmm. Of course, when you're there, you can also visit Harley Davidson's.
The museum and everything.
The museum's something else. I mean, I really like the top floor and the people who initially started the company and the history, and they knew they were building something that was worth preserving. So they even early on they started keeping one bike of each model when they kept all this paperwork, and they were really serious about building something that was long lasting. And a lot of companies, in your early years, you're just worried about surviving, right? You're not worried about your own heritage.
Your legacy as a business.
Right. These guys, it seemed like right from the very start, they knew they were building something that would last for a long time. And so it was really cool to see that so much of it gets preserved. It's incredible. And it's really there's a few places around the country, there's a lot of racing and motorcycles preserved, and that's for motorcycle riders. The Harley Davidson, official museum it's a wonderful resource. It's incredible to have that there.
Yeah, I want to go up there real soon. I got a friend I made recently this year that's from up in Milwaukee. He's from the area. He's not from Milwaukee, but like I said, having friends to go experience that side. I mean, you got Chicago not too far away, and Green Bay, and all those bad. I don't know if I want to go in February though.
Right.
I want to go up there and ride all this cool shit.
Right.
And I heard there's some great riding up through the Northern Great Lakes area.
Sure.
And I want to check all that stuff out. Where'd y'all go after that? So y'all did Mama Tried, and then what was after that? Was it kind of stagnant till?
I think we it wasn't too far after that we went right into Giddy Up.
Yeah, Giddy Up is beginning of April.
You know, there are always a hearty few people, and it depends on what the weather, but you'll see people ride to Mama Tried. And the last 2 years, the weather's actually been okay. But I think that time of year, you don't know what you're going to get. I mean, you could get a blizzard up there. It looks to me like probably Giddy Up is the first real event that you can ride to, and you're almost guaranteed to have incredible weather.
Daytona was so fucking cold. Sorry. It was cold as hell, man. Right. It was so cold. We left here, and man, I don't know what I was thinking all last year. I wasn't on to the tinted visors and that kind of stuff. So we did the tinted visor with the clear insert, you know, so the inner visor on the Ghost, we did that with the clear. So like at night, we can just flip up the visor.
But your face froze.
But it was freezing all the way down there. So by the time, at night, we're just like, don't want to open the shield because it's, 40-something degrees crossing Florida, of all places, that you want to think it's just blazing hot. But, man, it was freezing the entire time. And then, it was not enjoyable. I talked a lot about it, so I don't want to give too much bad vibe or press about Daytona. But Florida needs something else. Florida needs something new that's trendy, that's in a better location, because like Daytona itself has grown so much as a city that the bike event is just inconvenient to the city. Right. It's too big of a city now, and the event's too huge. It's not like a smaller event like like Cleveland or something like that. Right. Where it's just kind of contained to one spot. Sure. It's so big it needs its own town. Well,
so to expand on that for us, we went to Sturgis a few years ago. Simpson did as a company, and we were successful, but we felt we were a little lost in the shuffle. Like it was hard for people to find us. That it's just so big, it just turns into bigger than a small city, right? So the same thing with Daytona. That those venues for us, we're not a big enough company. We can't roll in there with 2 semi trucks and have a parking lot full of helmets. So that's a challenge for us. And I have because of some new product I have coming out. I have decided that next year we will go to Daytona and we will go to Sturgis next year.
Well, you know what? Sure. Like say for instance Daytona. I guess, Chemical Candy, you know who they are, the Chemical Candy? Yep. They helped put on a show called Boogie East in like the more, and I'm not very fluent in the Daytona ways, but between the Performance FXR Dyna show they host in there and this Annie Oakley's place that they're having this stuff, like that seems like the place I would want to set up. Right. And not like on Main Street with all the drunks and the leather shops, you know what I mean?
Exactly. So what we've got to do, and we've got to spend our time, I mean, we've got less time for Daytona, more time for Sturgis, but we've got to find the right people to be around and the right people to team up with, and that whether that's getting hooked up with kind of like you said a show within a show. Yeah. But we've got to find our spot.
Yeah, you got to narrow down this massive event and find your area, because the numbers that I've heard to be at, like, say, for instance, the Harley dealership at Daytona that has all the different places, they got JP Cycles and everything. I think my buddy from Sinister Wheels, $11,000 or $16,000 to park their semi there and do business. Like, that's insane. And just like you said earlier about how, like, if all these vendors pulled out because they're costing so much money, guess what you don't have anymore? Right. You have a camp out, which is what we're throwing September 7th through the 9th. Nice. But no, like that's what it is. Like you have to show promoters, which I don't even know who promotes. Like, is there a panel for Daytona still or something like that? I mean, it's got to be something. You can't just assume that bikes can take over the city without anybody's.
Oh, I would think in the case of Daytona, and I don't know if there's a committee that does that, or if it's I think there's a lot of stuff away from the racetrack. At one point, it was probably just the race people, but probably it's something that's done with the city council of Daytona that works on that, and some organization. And then, like you said, there's private people that have these different parking lots and things like that they lease out for the weekend or for the week, and it's good for the community. But I think it's so big. it's easy to get lost in the shuffle. And I think it's so good monetarily for the community that there's a lot of people that try to recreate that. I won't name names, but there's some other cities that all of a sudden they're going to do XYZ Bike Fest.
Yeah.
And they haven't really got it up to speed yet, and they're asking, a weekend pass is $150, and you have to, it's going to have some bands, but the vendors are limited, and it's a little tough. I mean, it's a catch-22. If you don't have riders, you're not going to get vendors, and if you don't have vendors and shows and things to capture entertain people, you're not going to get the riders. So, and especially if you throw in the mix, like, to guarantee for the bands and things like that money, you're going to charge riders, an entry fee. That's tough. That's absolutely tough. So.
Yeah, and that's why I think that it works well for Sturgis, because in no way, shape, or form in the next 100 years is that part of the country just going to blow up into some metropolitan area. Right. So it's easy for that. But Daytona is a coastal town.
Sure.
That has probably had its ups and downs as a city and stuff like that, and between all the crackheads walking up and down the beach and spring break at the same time, so you got all these frat boys and stuff running around, and then you got us old dirty bikers looking at these young girls that we have no business looking at. It's just it's a mix of things that don't go together.
Well, and you can really only get to Florida from one direction, right? I mean, everybody has to kind of get funneled down to there. And,
funneled.
Right, it's what it looks like, right? It's a funnel. And that's, again, that's a deterrent for Sturgis when we talk about people that, and we all know guys that, blast out and ride 18 hours straight to get there, but it's not convenient for anybody.
Yeah.
But in saying that, one of the attractions that has been to events like that is that you're pretty much in the middle of nowhere and you're left alone, and you can be, I don't want to say lawless, but you can have a pretty good time without getting the stink eye from the man.
Exactly. I know this is completely never going to happen, but I thought Florida, it would be dope to have a big rally on Key West. It's a city, but it's small, and you got to go a long way to get there. It's very remote. And you can just have vendors all along the bridges all the way down.
Right. But I think it'd be tough to get people to. That's a horrible ride.
I want to do it to say I've done it, but I can imagine it's horrible.
Yeah, I've only done it in a car. I haven't done it on a bike, and it's
almost 100 miles of bridges, isn't it?
Yeah, it's something like it's crazy that you're way down in South Florida and you're halfway to the Keys. Like, it's something like crazy. You're like, how does that even work? I don't know. There's probably other venues that will be good. I still think that there's some shows that are going to struggle, especially as we see this changeover from the older crowd, that some of them unfortunately are aging out of our sport, and the younger crowd. I think you're going to see a change from these week, 10-day, even 14-day long shows to a lot of guys, like we were talking about your camp out, you probably can knock off noon on Thursday, get in late Thursday night. You're going to take Friday off.
Have a good time.
Have a good time on Friday night. Have a good time on Saturday night. Sunday night, you break down camp, you ride home, and you're going to work on Monday.
Yeah.
And I think young people, I think that's what they see in their future. Older people right now, I know people who, they've got 6 weeks of vacation. Mm-hmm. I don't see that happening for a lot of people. I don't think that a lot of young people foresee that any time in their life.
Yeah, not for a while. The way companies are set up nowadays is like, what companies are hiring that's offering, that kind of vacation without 10 years or 20 years of service? And who has a job for 20 years these days?
Anymore, right? That doesn't really happen. So, and I think we're all, the idea of my father's generation, retiring when you're in your late 50s or a couple years into your 60s, and then being retired 20 years or more. I don't even know if our generation is going to think about doing that. So. We probably are going to I'm going to have to work till I'm 70.
Yeah.
And when I'm 70 and I'm a crotchety old guy, I'm probably not going to feel like, I don't know what I'll feel like then. Hopefully I'll feel okay. But Yeah, so I think we're going to see a changeover from a lot of these big, giant, massive, long shows to shows that are smaller, just a few days long.
Yeah, more intimate.
More
you know.
intimate. And the other thing I see with and I hate to sound like an old guy when I say the younger generation, but the thing I see when it was, for me, it's kind of about the hardware. Like I get there and I'm just ate up with the bikes, and that's all I want to think about is the bikes and what's he got here and what's he got on this bike. Like when I see the Krause's front ends with the Oleans and the radio mount Brembos on and the BST carbon fiber wheels on a bagger, it just blows me away. I mean, I absolutely love those things, and I think my generation was all about the hardware, and it seems like the younger generation is more about it being about the experience with these other people. They get together, it's the friendships, and the motorcycles get them together, but the important part is like the camaraderie and just the feeling of the event itself. And I think that's kind of cool. I mean, it's different than what I'm used to, but I think it's pretty cool. It's kind of neat that's going on.
Yeah, in a sense, I feel like there's a lot of like you were talking about the hardware, and you look at the bikes, but I feel like a lot of people in our younger generation is also they're customizing their get up, themselves, their apparel to also be trendy enough to go with the bike. So it's so crazy because you've been in the motorcycle scene a long time. I don't want to sound like I'm hating on anybody because I'm proud of all these people that's done great things, but it's crazy to see businesses like the flannel company like Dixon and all these clothing companies that are just getting massive followers and massive people wanting their stuff. It's awesome, but it's almost like these guys are more famous now than the people that build the bikes and the stuff like that. So
I mean, arguably
the helmets,
Simpson, Simpson is part of a look. Some people would laugh and joke and say that we're, there's a certain crowd out there that we're part of a uniform.
Yeah.
And I can't knock that, right? It's pretty cool.
Yeah, you're definitely part of the Dyna Bro kit. That's
right.
The memes.
Right, I totally get that. So we're going to be going to AIM Expo in a couple months. And on Monday, I ordered up a couple different Dixons to see what we want to wear as a group, because we're going to wear Dixons at our booth in AIM Expo, and we'll have Simpson screen printed on them. But we want to have, we want to be accepted. We want to wear the right things. And quite frankly, with their button-down collars that don't flap in the wind and all that, I mean, they're made to ride motorcycles.
Yeah,
They're legit badass shirts.
If I was balling, their work shirts, they have those
Right.
work shirts, the little short sleeve ones.
Right.
They're fucking awesome.
Right.
I really like wearing them, but I don't really wear a lot of collars in life unless it's court, probation, things like that. So, it's like, I'm glad I have this shirt, but, I don't ever wear it because they got stripes on it, and I'm I got a belly, so it kind of insinuates that. It just kind of directs the attention towards that,
When I packed to come down to Texas to work this week, I noticed that I needed a couple of shirts because we had a board meeting earlier this week. So I actually had to look presentable for.
You had to go corporate on us.
The executive management, but the rest of the time I packed shorts, and every single one of the T-shirts I packed was a black T-shirt. So it's kind of funny. And the CEO came in and we saw each other. He lives out of state as well, and we don't see each other all the time. But he walked in and he had a black T-shirt on. And he's like, "Hey, look, I've got a black T-shirt on like you. It's part of your uniform." So I guess I'm known for black T-shirts.
Well, see, like me, I'm horrible about keeping food in my mouth. So, like, a black shirt hides all the stains and the pizza sauce and, noodle sauce and stuff like that. So.
Right, for sure.
It's crazy when you're black. You're so bad that your black shirts have stains in them that you can see.
I actually have a problem with that as well. I do. There's still things that stain black shirts for sure.
So after Giddy Up, man, Giddy Up was fun this year. We had so much fun because we came in and hung out with you. You gave some of our friends the tour of the shop. Or of the warehouse. Yeah. And then we went and had lunch, and then
Joe and Tony, right?
Yeah, Joe and Tony.
We had a good time with those guys.
we literally we barely saw you the rest of the trip. We were
Right.
partying way too much. We were trying to link up, but it
Right.
was just too hectic, man.
It's
You got a tattoo that weekend, didn't you?
I did got a tattoo that new weekend, and I've actually got one scheduled a week from last night, so 6 days from now.
Yeah.
When I was at the Harley museum, I saw a piece of literature that was from 1938, and it was a logo they had made way before they had a Harley bar logo or anything like that at all. And it's kind of this real interesting. It's kind of a flag, but not, kind of an arrowhead, but not. And so a guy that does some graphic art works for me. I took a picture of it, and I sent him the picture, and I said, "Hey, clean this up. I'm going to do this as a tattoo." And so I've scheduled down here. There's a guy that I like here in New Braunfels that did that other one for me, so he's going to do this. So next Thursday I'll get some fresh ink.
Fresh ink.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it was fun, man. Like I said, Giddy Up is just such a blast, man. Just the way of setting up that type of show is just like ideal. And like we were talking about shows and setting them up, it's like it's a weekend thing. They only do it Saturday, but we're all ready to go, so we're here Wednesday night.
Right,
we're trying to party as long as we can. But for us, it's close. So I get it for everybody else coming out of town, they can blast down here and stuff. But that is the future, man. I think.
But again, the venue, Joey and those guys put on one of the best shows you'll ever come to. The music's great.
There's a topless chick singing this year. She was topless.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, and not just for a moment. So like, did 3 or 4 songs with absolutely no shirt on. Right.
Giddy Up 27 or 18, guys.
Right.
Come on.
So the venue.
How you gonna live that up?
If people haven't been here before, the venue is this real old ice house. It's kind of on the side of a hill, so the whole thing is kind of on the side of a hill. And it's right on the banks of the Guadalupe River, and there's all these campgrounds on the Guadalupe River, which is a beautiful river. Like the water's turquoise; it looks like ocean water. And for
it's
all
not turquoise when we leave, though. A lot of dirty bikers and.
So, for us that are in the Midwest, to come down here to Giddy Up, and I know it's a little bit of a haul, but. If you've been up there and the leaves have been off and it's been cold since November, and you get down there and the leaves are coming out and everything's bright green, and you just don't ride, and you don't have to have a leather jacket on. Even you can ride in a t-shirt in that time of year.
Or a flannel or a hoodie.
It's just
super.
It's just something special about it. It's your first rides of the year, are in a really cool place with a bunch of really cool people. It's great. I mean, it'll always be one of my favorite shows without question. And it's our home show. It's right here in New Braunfels. I mean, I call the Texas headquarters for Simpson, the mothership. This is the worldwide headquarters for Simpson, and that show is
right there,
15 minutes away at the most. So people say it's Austin, but it's really New Braunfels.
Yeah, it's kind of like, Austin. Technically San Antonio's closer, so it's weird, but yeah, like those smaller type of shows, I think are going to be more popular, and as more of them pop up across the country, I think I think they're all going to grow. I mean, Giddy Up is, what is it, 6-7 years now? I
want to say this was
6. Right? Or 8? I don't know. But it hasn't been 10 years yet. Born Free was 10 this year, right?
Right, absolutely. Yeah.
So, and you see how big that thing's turned into. Could you imagine if Born Free turned into a week-long event? That would be insane.
Right. And I don't think it will. I think rather than having a week-long event, the organizers will they'll have an additional event, another weekend, in another place.
Yeah.
Because I think that is maybe a little more conducive to growth. Just cramming more people into the same area. I don't know if that's. And
then you're also cramming them into one of the most busiest places in America.
Right.
And then it's it's a tough trip to go west sometimes. You know what I mean? Depending on where you're from. I mean, fortunately here in Texas, we're kind of like in the middle of everything.
Right.
But no, I think that's it's cool. Like if you split it up and you make it available to everybody. I mean, there's so many cool areas of the United States, and like we were talking about with our camp out, is how we want to branch out. If this one's a success or if it's good, and people have a good time, then bringing it to different parts of the country at different times of the year.
Right.
You know, like maybe in the summertime, you know, you go camp up north somewhere. You
Right.
create an event for people to come and just do that. And it's not like taking out a 401k loan out of your 401k to go to Sturgis
Right.
or something like that.
Right.
You know, if you're not willing to roughneck it on the ground like some of us are. you
So
know?
so there's an event, and they didn't have it this year because I think the owners of this farm, I think she had a baby, and right at the time when they typically do this, but it's kind of a late summer. I think it's late summer. It's called the Boogie Farm Clam Jam, and it's just some cool people to have this big farm. And there's no races, there's no vendors, there's nothing like that. It's just a big giant biker camp out in a field.
Yeah.
You know, and kind of everybody's invited, and it's I've not been, but I really wanted to go bad this year. I've had a lot of friends that go there, and I think those things happened with bike clubs and stuff organically a long time ago.
Yeah, they call them field meets.
Right.
Yeah.
But I don't know if you know, there's been generations that have missed out on that, but people are trying to recreate those things. And again, it's not a week long. It's not real commercialized. There's nobody there trying to sell you beef jerky or the latest class cleaning material or things like that. It's just, you know, it's cool people. And again, I think it's usually in a venue where you're not bothering anybody. You know, you don't have to pull a permit to do it, or you're not, you know, against some city ordinance or something like that. You know, you're in the middle of nowhere where nobody cares.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, so.
And that's the thing we found. I mean, fortunately, we were able to find our campsite through doing this podcast with certain people, and now that we're kind of thinking about doing it on a bigger scale and further away, that it's kind of like, you know, there's so many places out there, so many campgrounds, which is obviously, I would think the best place to do it is find a privately owned campground in a cool area.
Right.
And just say, hey, look, how much we just want to pile as many people here as possible. You know, we just need a beer store close by, and, you know.
Right, for sure.
It makes it a lot easier, but, you know, yeah, the trips are fun. So I didn't get to go to Born Free. How was it good? Was it fun? Was it over the top? Was it hot as hell? I mean, last year was hot as fuck.
Okay, so last year was crazy, and this year it was some of the nicest weather you could ever imagine.
It's because I didn't come. I'm a hot guy, so.
Well, it really was. It was the temperature. You know, sometimes you go to California, the thing you don't notice is the weather, and that tells you the weather is super nice because you just don't notice it.
Yeah.
And it was like that this time. You just didn't notice the weather. The crowd was great. I didn't really get a chance, as normal. I don't really get a chance to listen to music or anything like that, but. You know, the more you go out there, the bigger opportunity it is to see friends and make friends and reconnect with people you've met 2 years ago. And we had a chance this year. Some guys that Gastown Supply in Canada, that are our Canadian distributor for Simpson helmets, they rode down, and we had a good time with them. We might have had a little bit of libations in our cooler, and shared some things that Canadians don't normally get to drink, and we showed them some things we were working on for next year, and you know, it was pretty exciting, and it was good to. I didn't know those guys personally, but it was kind of cool. They had ridden down from Vancouver.
You didn't make it last year to the Born Free,
right? So last year,
because they were there,
right?
Yeah.
So last year I had done a show in Chicagoland area called Motoblot, put on by my friend Larry Fletcher. It's a fantastic show, really, really cool. A different vibe, more of a cafe racer, like rockabilly music, and a lot of, you know, triumphs, and just it's a different vibe, right? It's not like the chopper scene, and I love that. It was really, really cool. But for us, that's really not a target customer that we're really popular with yet. And Born Free is such a huge show, and it's so good for us that the executive management said, "Hey, next year we really need you at Born Free. You just got to be there. You can't split the team in two. You got to do Born Free." So I was really excited to go back to Born Free. I went out there and I spent. Usually, what I'll do is I'm not a salesperson at all. I horrible at that. But what I'll do is usually when I go to a place like that and do a show, a lot of times I'll hang out, especially if it's on the West Coast. I'll hang out for a week afterwards and have a new helmet or a prototype or something like that, and I'll stop at existing dealers that we already have.
Who's some pretty big dealers on the West Coast that does a lot of Simpsons that you know?
So, I mean, there's a lot. We're in a lot
of places.
And the problem is you put me on the spot.
You put one out
You're
there.
right.
Hey, what about me?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many, from San Diego Harley Davidson and El Cajon to Riverside, Temecula, Quaid Harley Davidson.
So I think it's just rumors. I'm not trying to put this in anybody's mouth, but I know some dealerships don't like to push other brands of helmets. They try to stick with only their Harley brands and try to keep as much outside stuff as possible. But it seems like every dealership in California is like middle finger to the system. They're doing whatever they want. They're putting whatever sells in there, and they're just being the people to provide for their customer base. But everywhere else, it's like, oh no, we got to follow the book and be.
It depends. I mean, Houston is a great example of, I hate to say it, but we really don't have like dealership coverage in Houston, and it's the majority of Harley Davidson shops are owned by a couple different people in Houston area. And they're definitely, and I can't fault them for their business model, but they sell only HD product, and that's it, nothing else. And of course, HD corporate prefers that, and they would like that. But I think what makes that tough for a dealership is, if your dealership just carries HD stuff, and the guy goes to a different dealership and it just carries HD stuff, and it goes to a different dealership, what's the use? So what I think you should do is have a diversification of products in there and something different. And when you walk in, it's so I think it's kind of cool. Of course, I'm gonna always pick the Dyna stuff, but I love the dealership. Like San Diego Harley Davidson has a fantastic selection of a lot of different. You go in there and you're gonna see Loser Machine stuff. You're gonna see Dixon stuff. And I travel and see a lot of Harley Davidson dealers around the country. And it's funny for me, I go into San Diego and El Cajon as well, and usually walk out with a whole handful of stuff because it's stuff I don't see at other HD dealers.
Yeah.
So even me, who kind of has access to all that stuff, those dealers, their product mix gets me excited.
Yeah.
So I think that would work for every customer, right?
I think I think a lot of the culture can at some point start at the dealership experience. Like, so, obviously Instagram is great for showing like the world of Harleys and unknown and the different people that do paint and all these crazy things and different riders and stuff. But when they walk into their dealership, if their dealership can back it up with also being in tune with what is popular in the industry and have Simpson helmets and Dixon flannels and products that are going to be a little bit more trended towards the younger generation, then I feel like they can get that customer.
Right.
But like you just said about, if somebody wants a Simpson helmet, right, and then, none of these dealerships have it, but that one independent does.
Right.
The independent probably also does oil changes and probably also does things like that. And so they come in to get that helmet purchase, and next thing you know, you guys had this in stock and you had that in stock. Go ahead and we'll do the oil change. Now we're doing cams. Now we're doing all this other stuff. So it seems like you said it best, just having, diversification, I guess, is the right way.
Right. But it's tough. I also understand that they're in business a lot of times to sell units. Now we know that their motor clothes department a lot of times and their service department is some of the most profitable departments in the store. But that said, they like to sell bikes. Selling bikes is exciting. And, if they do a good job at selling Simpson helmets, let's say they kill it at selling Simpson helmets, and they're going to, a large dealership's going to sell $50,000 or $75,000 of Simpson helmets a year. We think that's wonderful. That's a great dealer for us. But they look at the end numbers and they're like, wow, that's what 3 bikes cost, 4 bikes cost.
Yeah.
In the gross sale. So, sometimes it's hard to get that. They're motorcycle dealers. They're not helmet dealers. And sometimes it's hard to get them excited about small things, but in the same respect, a lot of times it's the small things that get the consumer excited and bring them into your dealership.
Okay, so what about I come from a sport bike background, and you've been in that world
Sure.
too. So you go into a normal Yamaha dealership, and you're going to see a wall of Shoei and a Arai, and even some of those brands even do cross promotion between like an Arai helmet with a Yamaha logo or
Sure.
graphic scheme.
Sure.
So it seems like why the Japanese figured out like we can use all the brands of our industry to sell more stuff.
Well, it happens. I think HD keeps that a little closer. They don't like to co-brand because their brand is so strong. So, there might be some people who believe Harley-Davidson builds helmets, and they don't.
Yeah.
They don't.
Yeah.
And that's not to take anything away from their helmets, because their helmets are usually built by very reputable helmet companies, but they're not co-branded. So even though HJC or Shoei or a few other people may make the HD helmets for them, very seldom would you see a helmet that says Harley-Davidson and have an HJC logo on it,
Yeah.
unless you go looking for it and know what to look for. So I understand where they don't like to do it much in the way of co-branding, or if they do, it's a Ford F-250.
Yeah.
Both of them.
I forgot about those.
Yes, a $75,000 truck, right?
Yeah.
So it's a little different.
Yeah, that's for sure. Yeah, well, I think it's cool, man. I've been trying to work more with our dealerships here locally, just trying to, there's people that want to buy things. There's people who want to buy helmets, and like us, we've been trying to struggle with, okay, do we want to go full force with the storefront? And then I got to be there every day to
Right.
open up the door. I
Right.
can't come down here and talk to you in the middle of
Right.
a Friday.
Right.
So there's a lot of things for that. But if the dealerships had more, I feel like if I use the dealerships to kind of promote more, then it brings the awareness in our city and the girls. There's so many people riding Dynas around here, so
Sure.
many.
Sure.
But not all of them are on Facebook and Instagram,
Right.
and not all of them feel comfortable to come hang out. And that's kind of why we started this camp out, to hopefully get a lot of people together to
Sure.
just realize that we're all here to have fun.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
But yeah. So
Well,
Born Free was fun, huh? I
Yeah.
guess.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, I think retail, brick and mortar retail, is for anybody who hasn't done it. It's very, very challenging. Just the hours you've got to be there is very, very daunting. You need to be open when people are willing to spend money, and I understand a lot of people who get into this business want 2 days off. They're not going to have a Saturday and Sunday off, so usually a lot of them have Sunday and Monday off. But that still, you're really, really married. Even when you're not busy, you're married to having that door
Yeah.
unlocked and being available to customers.
I feel like you should have like Tuesday and Wednesday off.
Right. Those are slower days. And of course, if you're a brick and mortar dealership and you're closed at all, and in my opinion, if you're closed on Monday, people are out riding on Saturday and Sunday. They go back to the office, they get real excited about ordering some parts, or there's something broke on their
that's a
dirt
good
bike or
idea,
ATV. If you're not open on Monday, it's easier for them just to put the order in online and have it shipped to their office
That's
later
a
on
good
that
point.
week. And so it's like Monday is actually an important day to be open. So I don't know, something like your idea of a storefront, I think would work really well for you. But instead of being married to regular hours, you might have to do something where you have these limited hours, and sometimes maybe it's more like, hey, there's a bike night and there's a party at our place tonight.
Yeah. And so like for, I haven't talked much about it on here, but for our direction next year, if it all works out well, like I said, we're not really going to focus on like service work, but we want to be a place that has things in stock. Plus, it's going to be a vast amount of different things I'm trying to do within one building. But realistically, I mean, I could technically have my wife sitting at the front ringing people up. They want a flannel, they want a helmet, they want, some paint huffer metal flake jars, or they want something from Drag Specialties or Hard Drive. You know what I mean? So it's that aspect. So they can come and order, and I want to have it open every day of the week.
Sure.
Because I don't know about you guys, but me, like, I like hanging out in my shop when it's comfortable. Like when it's 110 degrees, like it's been the last 2 months, I don't want to be there. But I hope to have AC in this place. We're dream thinking here. You know what I mean?
Right.
So
AC is important.
Yeah, especially in Texas, man. But yes, that's the plan. But I don't know, man. Like, I'm excited with all the stuff that you guys are doing. I'm excited to start working with these, you guys and what we do with Paint Huffer and it's just I'm excited for next year, man. It's going to be a big year for all of us.
Well, every time we post one of your, works of art, I'll call it that because that's what they are. It's huge on our Instagram. I mean, people love what you're doing. I mean, absolutely, you've captured the imagination of people, and your blend of your panel work with your pinstripe work, and then usually when you see that, and there's guys that are talented doing that, but then nobody is able to combine that with these airbrush portraits that you're doing, and it blows people away that it's one guy that's doing all these different styles of work on one on one helmet. So.
It's like I did a 2-part series podcast on myself where I had to go back and think about my life and shit, and it was real weird to do it, but in the vast, when you've done something for a long time consistently, like I have in the paint business, like you develop different styles to compete with the different styles of what's popular over the years. So, me having, over 15 or around 15 years of experience, like I've seen a couple trends in the paint world come and go, just like we see in the bike world and everything else. So, it's just nice having all these different skills to where you can kind of really explore how to blend them together and create something kind of uniquely your own, as opposed to just, everybody likes it this way, I'm just going to do this, the challenge or the fun part of it not being a monotonous job where you're not enjoying what you do for a living is taking something as simple as just doing a panel job and turning it into something that looks like nobody else's. You know what I mean? But I mean, the great thing about it, like we were talking about at lunch today, is just how many cool painters and talented people there are that do cool shit. Like there was somebody, while I was waiting for you to come out here, I was on Instagram a while ago and someone painted an M80. I was like, damn, that's badass. I wish I knew who it was right now, but there's just so many cool painters and everybody has a different flair, and sometimes I'll get super inspired by someone else's job.
Sure.
Like, man, I didn't think about pouring a line that way across the helmet. And then it'll open up 40 different ideas I have for a helmet. You know what I mean? So.
And it's cyclical, I don't think this was the first to go around on panel paint jobs, right?
No, not for no.
And we see the van thing, and I don't know how much of the van thing you've seen here in Texas, but suddenly the van thing is pretty daggone hot. I mean, wherever we go, we see people just embracing van culture, and it's like they're pretending it's 1972 again, and that's opening up whole new panel paint jobs and styles, and bringing back what was big then. I see, airbrush murals becoming big again soon. And I don't know if you want to do that kind of stuff.
I don't know if I'm ready for that. I might be too old for that kind of enthusiasm. But, I was thinking about on the drive down here. I don't know why I was thinking about that, but you brought up the vans, and it really feels like we're just like the panel paint jobs was come and gone, or come and died down a little or whatever. It feels like culturally right now, like we're kind of in that same thing, like we're getting close to that, like more of that late 60s hippie kind of thing where you got freedom of the 1800s, I guess, and then it kind of gets super corporate and super 50s on you, you know what I mean, where everything's politically correct and stuff. And then you get this rebellion. And I feel like our culture's kind of getting a rebellion, and maybe I'm just looking at it from a motorcycle and van and perspective and a traveler and this kind of stuff like that, but you see that, and people are just looking for anything that gives off the idea of freedom and disconnect from corporate America,
I see that, but one of the things that I think is kind of interesting right now is that, and I think social media and I think the internet has added to this a great deal, was before we had this sort of shared style that came around, and because our media choices were so limited, and we had Hollywood was just small, and television was 3 stations. We collectively had and moved through these styles as a society, and everybody had the same style. Whereas right now, you can go to a place that sells, cool, stylish jeans, and you can buy super skinny jeans, and you can buy bell bottoms. And in their same group, they're really, really cool. And so I think what's happened is we're segregated in all these little groups where there are people who have completely embraced 80s BMX right now. There are people who completely, like, their fashion is, white T-shirts and aqua splash graphics and white sunglasses, and they've adopted like this 80s thing. And you used to have a whole group of people who are trying to live 1974 over. You still, if you look at like fashion and you look at like suits, maybe some of the cuts of suits right now are kind of like Mad Men, like 1950s style, really classic, like what JFK would wear or something. So I think right now, and I think it's social media and internet, I think all of these things all exist all at once. And so before, I think when it was really hip to wear your shirts this way or wear these particular colors or wear that, collectively the society went through that all together. And of course you had age differences, so you had young people did this and older people did this, but still it was like young people East Coast to West Coast. West Coast was always the quickest, and East Coast was right behind, and then they met in the middle sometime. But I still think collectively, I remember when the craze happened when I was junior high, was Ocean Pacific. And in Ohio, we were pretending like we all surfed, and it was surf style. We all wore board shorts and Vans, and even to a large extent today, we still say that style is driven from the West Coast, whether it's hot rods, whether it's cars, whether it's motorcycles, and it's board sports. It's surfing, it's skateboard, and to a smaller extent. Snowboarding, but that's where style initially comes from, and it permeates the rest of. But it is. I mean, I don't mean to ramble on here, but I think right now you do see like a jumble of styles. And
with social media, everybody can kind of click up. Everybody can kind of find, oh man, that looks interesting to me, and join their cause or their cult or whatever you want to call it.
Right.
And so it's like it makes it. In a sense, I understand it in a sense because, like, even me, like, I have a small group of friends that I found through motorcycling that are my close group of friends. And I like for it to grow, but I kind of don't. But I kind of would. It's kind of like an up in the air thing. But it just makes me, it gives you a way of, like, narrowing down this massive world that you live in and just operating in a small group and in a more manageable group or people that are like-minded. You feel more or less insecure around them or less, whatever.
Well, I think I said on the first podcast, if you believed and you prayed to a cactus, you probably with the internet and all these different social groups, you probably can find a group of people that are doing the same exact thing. Right. I mean, you can fly your freak flag pretty hard, and then bump into dozens of other people that are exactly minded like you are. And before, maybe you lived in a part of the world or a part of the country that you were almost a complete outcast. But suddenly, you can feel like you're part of something. So, I don't know. I mean, it's an interesting social experiment what's going on and how social media and the internet is connecting us all. And
what another crazy thing is, like, with the internet and social media, you start looking and finding these different shops that build bikes or that do stuff, and you're like, man, like, that's totally where they at in California, and you find out they're in Iowa. You're like, whoa, like, I think I want to go to Iowa now. They look like they're doing fun shit in Iowa. So.
Well, again, it was one of those things I touched on. The first podcast was when I was a kid and you wanted to build a custom bike, you had to find some crotchety old guy to teach you something. And he had to, he had to basically take you under his arm and say, okay, this is what you do. This is how we turn a CB750 into a cafe racer. Now, I know people who really aren't mechanically inclined at all, but anything goes wrong with their home, anything goes wrong with their car, anything goes wrong with their motorcycle, or they want to do a project to build something, they get on YouTube and they watch a couple videos and they have all the confidence in the world they can pull that off. And sometimes it works well and sometimes it doesn't. But the fact is that right now we've got just a multitude of information out there, some good, some bad.
Yeah.
But
the hardest part's sifting through it.
Right.
Yeah.
It's easy to share ideas. It's never been easier to share ideas. So it's a pretty exciting time.
Yeah, it's weird. It's just finding your place in it, though, is one
Right.
big thing. I mean, that's a challenging thing for companies. It's been around forever. That's challenging for companies that are starting. I think it might be easier for companies starting now to kind of have a better grasp of this new age of marketing, this new age of promoting and all this type of stuff, as opposed to someone that's been here for 50 years or 60 years, as Simpson will be next year.
Right.
And finding ways to stay productive in it, because what you guys might have had to do back in 1970 to sell your products would be completely impractical now. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. And you'd have magazines and print media that would come in and they would say, okay, here's our subscription rate. Here's how many, views we have per month as far as eyes on magazines. We believe that each magazine, 3 people look at it, and this is how many magazines we sell. This is how many subscriptions we have. And we had a good idea back then of how many people, when you put an ad in this magazine, how many people are going to see it. And there's analytics on Instagram and YouTube and all these things, but how accurate are those? And it is hard to get. Sometimes it's hard to get executive management to really buy into. Okay, what is this YouTube thing? Are people really, really? It almost seems like magic. Like, come on, are people really watching this instead of television?
Yeah.
And I have, I think I mentioned it at lunch. I have a 14-year-old nephew, and I think he mostly watches YouTube now instead of watching like television or even Netflix. Like, he likes just snippets of things that interest him and the way they've got the feed set up now, and they can basically just fill your feed with stuff that they know if you click on this video and you like that, you're probably going to like these next 5. And so capturing that and using that way to reach people with a product, with a marketable product, and trying to decide how to spend money on that media-wise is a challenge.
Yeah.
It's a challenge,
Yeah, I think that as we, if our media, as far as like how social media has gone from being, from MySpace to Facebook to Instagram to, all these other things that kind of pop up and come and go, it is hard to figure out which one to invest in, but I think what's good about companies like Simpson itself is that you guys have all these massive amounts of people who wear these helmets who constantly every day give you content to post. So it's like your product, is just like you sell 100,000 helmets, and then you have someone on Instagram takes a picture of themselves and they hashtag Simpson. You got this like it's like gremlins when you get them wet. They just keep popping.
Yeah, I mean, and we're lucky about that. I mean, we have some people that are, absolutely just perfect at setting up shots. Professional photographers, and amateur photographers that get great shots.
Yeah.
But what happens is, people love the helmet. They love how aggressive our helmets look. They love how they look in our helmets. They love to take photographs. They tag us. And then a great deal of them, we turn around and we share. And then because of the numbers of people that follow us, people love when we share their photos, because then they get kind of a cool exposure from it. And it's
And
just
it costed
this,
you nothing. It actually you gained from it more.
right.
Than
So
anything.
it's a symbiotic relationship. It works very well for both of us. And it's challenging. So I do our Instagram, I spend an amazing amount of time a day on Instagram.
Yeah.
It's crazy because I'm also involved with making sure that, you know, if you do take a picture of yourself wearing a Simpson helmet and you tag us, chances are you're going to get, like, you know, a thumbs up from me, or you're going to get a comment. You're going to definitely get a like. And so I try not to, you know, I try to interact with absolutely everybody.
Yeah.
And we have a
It's
great
a full-time job, man.
we have a great time with it, but it is a lot more work than people realize, and that's a great deal of our advertising is Instagram.
I was just about
Yeah.
to say that, is that, you know, rather than like looking at different ways to spend money, I mean, realistically, that's got to be the biggest gain for money financially for any company right now, is just having a strong Instagram, you know, feed, basically.
It is, but you also have to get to critical mass. You know, you can't have that idea and have 100 followers and make that happen. I mean,
Yeah.
to get it kind of happening organically. And I did not start our Instagram. Our Instagram was started by a gentleman on the West Coast that's a vice president for the company, and is a fantastic guy. His name's Dave, and he was really helped it get off the ground and helped us get established with the Dyna FXR crowd. And he was very, very instrumental in getting that to happen. But, you know, it was one of those things. He's a vice president. He was so busy with that, and it was all consuming that he had to get away from it. And
Yeah.
I mean, he's on the racing side, so he had so much responsibilities with
with the car side of it,
fire
yeah.
suits and all this other stuff. And I'm the dedicated motorcycle guy, so they were like, you know, you need to take this over. And I did. And having a lot of history in the motorcycle industry, you know, and a lot of different kind of riding and things, I think probably my interaction with our Instagram followers is probably pretty good, because I know kind of sort of what to say in any
You know
situation.
a lot of them too, because you're on the ground. You know what I mean? You're at the events. A lot of people meet you.
And that has helped a lot. I mean, I go to events and I bump into people and we meet, you know, finally, and it helps to see that people are real people. You know, that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
And that's one of my favorite parts. You know, as we grow, it looks like it would be more and more advantageous for us to hire somebody else to do Instagram and hire somebody else to do these shows, because my full-time job is actually developing the product.
Yeah.
So making the helmets fit the way they do, work the way they do, look the way they do, what colors they're going to come in, what sizes they're going to come in, all these details. That's my real job.
Yeah.
And so this other stuff we're talking about is kind of that's my weekend job.
Yeah.
So we talked about how I struggle with relationships. It's because I don't have anything else. It's just work.
Just work.
But it's really hard to give any of that up, because right now, like you said, Instagram is tied with the shows. I go to the shows, I see people that I know from Instagram. We develop a relationship. They want to post more photos. I want to post photos of people I personally know that I like. You know, that it's this whole thing that just kind of.
But also being on the ground like that gives you a better understanding of how to develop the products and how to do that stuff.
Without question. I mean, you hit the nail on the head right there. That's perfect, because what happens is I'm there. If somebody has a problem with the helmet, they don't like how it does this. They love how it does this. They love this aspect. They hate that aspect. People don't tend to have filters when they're in front of you, you know. They kind of tell you what they think. And I love seeing a person put on a helmet and love how it feels. Or if I see them pull it off and they're making a face, I'll say, hey, you know, tell me about what you didn't like about this experience. And so, yeah, product development-wise, the shows, because the shows are very time-consuming for me to do. I'm out of the office. You know, I was out of the office an entire month this year in June, and so they're tough, but the exposure it gives us, the amount of feedback I get directly from customers,
Yeah.
you know, not filtered through sales reps or filtered through customer service people, but actually from the actual end user directly to me, I can act on that, and so absolutely love that, and it's vital.
Yeah, and I say this for everybody that has a business, especially when it's catered to motorcycling. It's just like, if you're actually on the ground, your products can be better, your understanding of the market and culture you're marketing to can be better.
Right.
It just makes it all across the board, like, because you're actually active in it. You can think as a customer would,
Right.
or how would I want it to be, you know?
Well, you can't phone this in, right?
Yeah.
You got to be there, and I think people that ride motorcycles can I think they can smell people that aren't sincere when it comes to this kind of stuff. I think they just know.
Mm-hmm.
And we laugh about motorcycles and say you either get it or you don't. There's a lot of people who don't get it.
Yeah.
And I think when businesses decide to go down the road and be in the motorcycle industry, it's not a place to become rich at all. The motorcycle industry has this kind of ebb and flow that most business people really don't have the stomach for.
Yeah.
We have this crazy,
Because we have culture attached to it, you know?
Right. And we have this crazy, not so much down here and not so much on the West Coast, but we have an absolute crazy seasonality to it. Motorcycles happen in a good portion of our country 6 months.
Yeah.
And that's it. And then the rest of the time, people are thinking about college football or whatever. They might build a bike in their garage over the winter or whatever, but it's got this crazy seasonality to it, and you're not going to fix that. You can't. A guy with an MBA is not going to come in and smooth that out.
Why don't we sell bikes at this time of year?
Right. It sucks, but I'm sure the boating industry is the same way. I'm sure the camping industry is the same way, but it doesn't stop people from wanting to come in and fix that aspect of it. And there's no fixing it. You prepare for that, and that's going to happen. And you tie the seasonality of that to sometimes how the economy works, and things get scary.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to just prepare yourself for this is a normal course of the business.
Well, just finding out ways of, like, a friend of mine, Jason, says it's the smallest $1 billion industry there is, if it's that.
Right.
I would almost argue if it is a $1 billion industry
Right.
or not. But, it's super small. So it's like, in the car industry, people, there's a lot more money there. China has a way better time with cars than motorcycles do. And the people in the motorcycle industry take bigger hits when China comes in and copies stuff or things like that, as far as the, like what we were talking about with Ness and PM, like reproducing all the billet parts and stuff.
Right.
So, but, it's just one of those deals, man. Like, finding a way to make this a bigger industry I don't know if it's possible, because it's such a passion industry,
Well, motorcycling is never ever going to be in America, a necessity where consumers use it for basic transportation.
Mm-hmm.
I know there's people who ride every single day,
But it's not like Europe and India
It's
and
not like
stuff.
other places where I talked about this a little bit earlier, but one of the challenges we have is America there's a lot of immigration here,
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of people come from places where riding a motorcycle is something a second-class citizen does, is riding a motorcycle or a scooter. So you come here, your parents, scrape enough money together to have, they want the American dream, and they come to America and they have their children,
Mm-hmm.
and, they raise their children, and their young son gets finished with university or whatever, and he wants to buy a motorcycle. And his mom and dad are like, whoa, we're doing well for ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
You have a car. Why in the world would you want a motorcycle? Poor people ride motorcycles.
Mm-hmm.
And when you go to places like China and you go to places like India, you ride a motorcycle, or you start off on a bicycle, then you get a moped or a motorcycle or a scooter.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you're successful, you get a car, and you never go back.
Yeah.
So in a weird sort of way, what happens when our immigration population continues to grow, and motorcycling is perhaps looked down upon by parents and grandparents of people who are second or third generation here, but it's thought about that, only poor people ride motorcycles.
Yeah.
You know,
It's just another thing, another obstacle for motorcycles to,
right,
to
absolutely.
be
And weather. I mean, I don't know how you slice it, but once you get above, you know, like Tennessee, you have times and areas where you're just not going to be able to ride 6 months out of
Yeah.
the year.
for sure.
Makes it very tough, but there's no getting around that. And so I think we have to be happy with motorcycles being sort of a luxury and a
Yeah.
and leisure pastime.
You don't want to be that guy thinking that you're going to come invest millions of dollars into something and get millions of dollars back. You know, it's small fries. You know what I mean? I would think it is.
Yeah, I mean, I think again, you know, people want to enjoy it. It's a lot of fun. Again, if you get it, I kind of liken it to, for me, when I got training wheels off a 20-inch bicycle and took my first ride, there was a freedom I felt that I can't explain. And the fact that I could go around my neighborhood by
Yeah.
myself and faster than walking, and I absolutely loved it. And for whatever reason, I didn't get that same sensation when I turned, like, you know, driving age and got a car. A car really didn't make me feel like that anymore. Maybe it's because all the time growing up, I rode in a car with my parents.
Yeah, so it
And
was
so a
second-
car was no
yeah.
big thing. But as soon as I got a motorcycle, it kind of re-energized that same exact feeling I had as a kid on a bicycle. You know,
So, you know, you're well versed in motorcycles from all different types. I mean, I saw the post you just put out the other day on your personal one of the old adventure bike you had or whatever.
Right. I still have that bike.
You still,
Yeah.
And you have a road glide now, right?
I do. Yep.
And so so with Harley's new direction, like, what are your thoughts on some of that stuff? I know it's all just hearsay and you know.
I love it. I mean, I'm super, super excited about it. I just think that, you know, so I rode my first adventure bike back before that term was even coined.
Yeah.
And I had an 88 KLR 650, which was a big, giant Kawasaki single-cylinder water-cooled dirt bike. And I would ride it on some trails in Ohio and pop out on the highway all muddy and stuff. And people in cars would wonder about what in the world I was doing out on the road.
Making meth or something.
Right. And then I would turn around, and when I'm in the woods riding a thing, guys on real dirt bikes would go, "What in the world are you doing back here on that street bike?"
Yeah.
So, you know, and that wasn't quite the very, very start. I think BMW really started the adventure touring craze and venture bike craze probably back in the mid 80s. This is a few years after that, but I've always enjoyed those kind of bikes. I mean, I still think they're some of the best bikes to travel on, and it's still a small segment, but it's a fast growing segment.
I
And
think it goes back to what we were talking about earlier about people with their wanting to travel and feel like the
Right.
freedom
Right.
that, you know, gets kind of taken away from everybody as they get older.
Right. So I think what's happened is Harley's even seen, one, they get a little taste of it with the Ulysses, the Buell Ulysses, that was actually a pretty popular model. But I think they saw that a lot of guys who had like an HD bagger had a secondary bike that was one of the Japanese big dual sports. A lot of Harley guys I know have a KLR 650. When it's just raining or you want to run down to the store or something, they just jump on that thing. And
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if it falls over, if it gets dirty or dusty. And so a lot of those guys had a secondary bike. And it looks to me like the new adventure bike. I love the headlight of that thing. I'm going to call it
I dig it.
the Dirt Glide.
Dirt glide, yeah.
And, you know, it looks to me like I've not pored over the photos and things, but it looks like that's a new Sportster engine. You know, unit construction, completely modern. Looks like it's going to have dual overhead cams. I mean, it looks like a thoroughly modern V-twin. And I think it's really, really exciting. I'm sure that's coming out to help, or something similar is coming out to help them race against Indian in the
yeah.
flat track. You know, they're struggling a little bit with the XG bikes, and the XG bikes were never really designed to be race bikes. They were really designed to be inexpensive entry level Harley Davidsons.
Yeah.
So I think they're doing well for what they've got. The Indians were well designed, and they're very, very fast motorcycles right out of the box. You know, so I'm really excited about HD's. All their new lineup is pretty incredible. The Street Fighter looks really cool. And I feel sort of bad for them that there's the old school guys that are like, those don't look like Harleys. I hate them. They're the ugliest things in the world. And there's other guys that are like, I would never buy a Harley because it's old technology and nothing ever changes. So it's like damned if you're doing, damned if you don't. I think it's a great move for them. I think it's really exciting. And, I said this before. Harley's bigger than anybody else.
Yeah.
They're more successful in the United States than anybody else, period. We can see where when Harley Davidson is successful as a brand, that tide raises all ships.
Yeah.
And so the whole entire motorcycle industry has a tendency to do good, and that's everybody who's even Harley's competitor.
Yeah.
It's like when Harley does well, everybody does well. And so even if you're not a fan of that brand, to wish them bad luck is hurting our entire industry. So, I like all motorcycles. I can't get it. I'm trying to own one of everything.
Yeah. Can't have enough of them.
I don't think that's going to work, but I'd really love to. I'd love to have 1,000 motorcycles if I possibly could.
Yeah.
But I think the new bikes are fantastic, and I look forward to. We haven't really seen what the new Sportster is going to look like.
Yeah, you know what? When you brought that up at lunch, I was like, man, I didn't even think about that. That the Sportster is kind of the next one on the chopping block to kind of get a revamp. You know what I mean?
Well, sure. So the Sportster engine we have now, and the Sportster we've had for the last I don't know how many years. It's
30 years.
It's old. It's like an Evo Sportster, right? So. Yeah. We see those bikes, and I think it's interesting. The Street Fighter and the Dirt Glide, that has to be the Sportster engine, right?
Yeah.
It absolutely has to be. I think we've seen notes on what the displacement is, so we know that's not you can tell the engine's completely different, and we've not. I think it's kind of a cool move too that they haven't showed the Sportster. They showed two things that kind of nobody expected.
Well, also like any day now they're going to be releasing whatever they're doing for 2019. So it's kind of like the edge of your seat. Like they said 2020 on most of those bikes or whatever, but they're going to do something this year. It might just be colors, but
and I'll tell you,
it's the 150 or no, that was last year's 150.
Yeah, 115 was last year. But I'll tell you, you see a lot of things in the press about Harley Davidson and the demise of Harley Davidson. I'm going to tell you right now, they're not going anywhere. They're not close to going anywhere. They still sell way more motorcycles than anybody else. What happens is they have been a great stock to buy. Maybe not the last 10 years, but the previous 25, they were an incredible stock to buy.
Mm-hmm.
And now maybe they're not a great stock to buy, and they're being reported on for that. But the truth of the matter is, you know why they're not talking about some of the other brands? Because they're so minuscule, they don't matter.
Mm-hmm.
Harley Davidson is big business, and they're having some. It's weird. They're not having some growing pains. They're having some aging pains, and it's not their product. It's that their core demographic is simply getting too old. Mm-hmm. And I hate to say that, but they're moving on. They're passing away, and they're having not just passing away, but they're having to decide that they're not going to ride motorcycles anymore. That they've got, they're going to have a small car, or they're going to buy a Miata, or maybe they're going to buy a trike, or a slingshot, or something like that.
Yeah, it's interesting to see how they grow and evolve, and I think that's the best way to word it is just you have to continually evolve as a company, no matter what. You know what I mean? If it's pretty impressive that there are things that were designed on Harley back in the 40s. It was still like an FL fender, right? On a regular. That's a fender designed in the 40s,
right?
And so to me, I'm like, that's pretty badass that it still looks good to now. Like now, like it made it through so many like periods of change, and it's stuck.
Right, but in the same respect, could Because a lot of HDs, you could say some of the classics look like they were from the 40s.
Yeah.
Could Chevy theoretically build a brand new 55 Chevy? And I'm not talking about like a recreation like the Camaro or something like that. Could they make a brand new 55 Chevy and try to cram all the modern, anti-lock brakes and all that kind of stuff, but really be true to its original looks? Would it sell?
It's a tough one, man.
And I think it might.
Yeah, it's one of those deals. I mean, obviously there's a lot of comfort things that came along, like bucket seats and all that kind of mess, but the styling itself from, when you're talking about, I'm not a huge car guy, but I do, those cars from that era are just, they have so much character to it, man, and hell, what was it, the Impala in the 60s, every year was a different, like completely different car.
Yeah, so that was the same for 55 Chevy, from 55, 56, 57, 58, 59, 60, all different. Mm-hmm. And then they started getting where they would change it to the headlights or taillights every couple of years. Yeah. But, and they had, supposedly from a product development standpoint, they'd have those finished cars completely done 2 years ahead of time and just be kind of waiting on it. But to think that you changed all the sheet metal, all the tooling every single year, it's crazy. It's crazy to think that. And, I think that a lot of us, like right now, I think that we embrace what we remember when we were kids. And so we go back to, and there's a lot of people who think the van thing's really cool. A lot of people that were, when Harley was so successful, they were children in the 40s and 50s, and they remember that old style bike and what it meant.
Yeah.
And that's when the biker culture really took off, was after World War II. And I think they embraced that. I think they embraced that look and that style. And I think they liked that the bike, you could buy a brand new bike and it looked nostalgic. So what does that mean for right now? Does that mean the people who are going to buy bikes right now want motorcycles that looked more modern in the 80s or the 70s? And certainly you see right now that there are some people who definitely like the 70s style bikes.
Yeah. It's you bring up a lot of thoughts, man. I don't even have the right words for them, but just it's hard to wrap your head around the idea of yes, you want something new. I want something new, but then you get something new, you're like, man, I don't know. I really miss the old one. But then it's just a very weird place to be in of like truth. Like right now, like I just love FXRs. That's my thing.
Right.
But it's a very traditional Harley look. It only has a few things about it. But I mean, if you ask me, I'm a Harley enthusiast.
Right.
So a new bike that I would want to buy is a bike similar to the handling and lightweight and smallness of an FXR, big power, big brakes, big suspension out the box, where I don't have to buy a whole bunch of extra crap to put on it. But then again, that style of bike, I mean, you're taking a bike that in the 80s was futuristic, but only now is cool.
Right.
And then trying to introduce it now to people that aren't like really fluid in like what Harley is and what it looks like. I don't know if it would sell to the people, you know what I mean? So everybody wants the FXR to come back, but realistically, if it did, do you think it would sell? I mean, we're a very small group of people in the community of Harley Davidson.
I mean, what's funny is I think the Dyna FXR crowd, I think Harley Davidson pays very very little attention to them.
For sure. I mean, we're just really good at making memes.
Right. You go to a show, you go to one of these major shows, and even when you could buy brand new Dynas a couple of years ago, you go to a show and, HD would not have a Dyna with T-bars and a 2-into-1 exhaust. And you're like, that's so hot right now. Why wouldn't you at least show one of those off? You show all kinds of other bikes off. Why wouldn't you do that? And it's a little hard to understand. But again, you go to places like where I live. A lot of HD guys don't wear helmets, or they wear half helmets. And the Dyna FXR thing it's fairly non-existent.
Well, it's like small pockets of it, man. Like when I was in Indianapolis with Horsepower Inc., there was a freaking parking lot full of Dynas, and all these kids were rocking Simpsons and doing wheelies and doing big motor stuff.
Right.
I mean, it's just like they're everywhere, but they're not quite all together yet. Right. They're not quite linked up to where it's like there's this one biker bar where everybody goes to in the town, And
Yeah,
I mean, there's influence. Like, think about it. Like, if a lot of the older guys that are in your area are doing the ape hangers and the tassels and going and collecting the poker chips at dealerships,
right.
that's not going to be that appealing to that younger market.
Right,
So
for
it
sure.
might be a more sport bike
Right.
heavy enthusiast
Right.
in different parts of the country where they don't have this like Harley younger enthusiast. You know, like what we have here. We have a lot of kids on Harleys here.
Sure.
And a lot of it's because of choppers, because they want a bike, but they're not
Right.
quite ready to go, kick a, shovel head over and maybe not make a ride today.
Right.
And, it's just
Well,
that.
I think what's helped a lot is that Dynas were affordable,
Yeah.
right? And they're still affordable. We're I have a coworker that wants a Dyna right now really bad, and he is searching Craigslist down here.
Who,
and,
Joe?
Oh, yeah,
Joseph?
he's on it. I mean, he will not let it go. And there's Dynas here for $3,000.
Dude,
now they're not perfect.
the Dyna that I'm riding right now, I shouldn't say how much I paid for this because I'm gonna try to sell it soon. But I picked it up out of Houston for $2,500.
Right.
And it runs.
Right, and they're great bikes, and the idea is, and like I told him, this younger crowd cannot go. He's a young guy. They cannot go and finance even a $15,000 bike. They can't. It's just not in the cards right now. But what they can afford to do is put down $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 on a bike, and then $500 a month to do this, $500 a month to do that. You're going to do suspension. Now you're going to do the brakes. Now you're going to get, you're going to save up over the winter. You're going to get a paint job.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, you actually have a really nice bike. Dynas and FXRs are great platforms to build.
Mm-hmm.
And, motorcycles are seldom a good investment. And I would never tell people
Yeah,
you
true.
fix it all up and you're going to make money on it.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things you can build on and you can enjoy, and you're not going to lose your butt on it. You're still going to get some money back out of it.
Yeah, for sure.
But I think that's what's helped. I think that's what helped the young guys that are coming off sport bikes and mountain bikes and skateboards and these things that have been dirt bike guys and motocross guys, and they want, I don't know, they've got to the point where, I mean, riding
edgier bike.
Right, riding a sport bike 150 miles an hour and doing wheelies that are so freaking easy to do, it's not a challenge. They want something that's got a little more attitude. We all know how much satisfaction the torque is of a big twin, rolling it on, what that torque feels like, and they want something different. And so what all of these used FXRs and Dynas have done is they've opened the door for people who don't have enough money to go drop $25,000 on a road glide.
Yeah.
And that's a big deal. And of course, the tough part for HD is that's real hard to recreate, right?
I think that, we talked a little bit on the last podcast about the short game and the long game of things. And I think that in one aspect, Harley should be playing the long game with these Dyna kids. Making a bike that they can't afford. You might not make as much profit off of it, but give them something they want that'll keep them connected to the HD brand.
Right.
Do your other bikes, grow that as well, maybe some other models. And then, like when the dude hits 30, and he starts getting some good money, he starts making real money, he's like, man, I think I'm going to sell this bike I got now, $4,000, $5,000, $6,000 on the Craigslist. And then I'm going to go put that money down on a new Road Glide, a $27,000 bike, which is what they're going now for, some of the base models or the special, I guess.
Right.
I think that's the better thing. But then again, I'm just a dumb old painter, so I don't know shit about like corporate, things.
The tough part, and we go back to this, and I think it hurts our whole entire industry, even for the beginner Japanese style bikes that are, the 400 Ninja now and things like that, is that we have, from an emission standpoint, motorcycles don't contribute anything emissions-wise. Nothing. And
kind of like us painters, like they make us put these massive booths and stuff to keep toxins down. Like, come on, man. One diesel, we're equivalent to one diesel going 10 miles. What I mean?
Right. I mean, if you're really, I don't want to get on my soapbox here, but what kills me is, it hurts our industry. What could they sell a big twin Dyna chassis bike and let's make it a stripper, okay? What if it didn't have to worry about emissions and have catalyst? What if it didn't have to have ABS brakes? What if it was actually had a carburetor on it? Okay, but you could sell it. Maybe you could sell it for $9,500 or $10,000, maybe less, and it's a platform to build from.
Yeah, they could add fuel injection to it. I mean, they can do things like that.
Right. And so, and what would a Ninja cost? That's a 400 Ninja if it didn't have to have ABS, if it didn't have to have catalyst and all these other sort of things to make the thing super, super clean. I can promise you that, look at lawnmowers. Lawnmowers don't have catalytic converters. They don't have fuel injection. Lawnmowers are super dirty, and there's millions on a daily basis mowing tons of yards. You're really worried about the environment? Outlaw lawn mowing.
You gotta go get a state inspection on your lawnmower.
I mean, it sounds ridiculous, but it seems like they're picking on people that, motorcycles are a tiny, tiny percent of the population. It's 2 or 3 people in the country, and it would be, it would help more people get into the sport if it was cheaper on them to stick their toe in the water. And bikes, even entry-level bikes, are getting so expensive. They just are.
Well, I mean, with the 500s and 700s from Harley, it's like they just don't appeal to me. I mean, if I get the purpose of building those bikes, but like you said, if they could make a really stripped down, bare bones style bike, maybe a cross between like the bigger than a Sportster frame, but definitely not as big as a Softail, and just something easy, man. Just they got to have twin cams laying around there, somewhere they can do a couple runs.
Right. Well, or again, what could, I think the 500 and 750 are still pretty expensive bikes. How cheap could those things be if we didn't have to worry about them having fuel injection, if we didn't have to worry about them having catalyst, if we didn't have to worry about them having ABS brakes?
Yeah.
And could those bikes be $1,500 cheaper?
Yeah.
So I was it's been a year and a half ago, last year, I was in China, and I'm in a small little city, and I wander into a Yamaha dealer, and there's a Yamaha 125. Okay, so it's a single cylinder, carbureted, no catalytic converter. It's a full-size motorcycle, only it's a 125. It's electric start, air-cooled, single cylinder. And it looks very much like an SR500 or SR400, which they still make. And I did a quick calculation on the math and how much that bike costs. It was less than $1,000 for a brand new, actual Yamaha brand bike.
Well, I don't know how it is in China, but I know in Japan, like they have huge licensing things when it comes to bikes. So they sell very 1,000 cc or 100 cc's, 2.5.
So they I don't think they really have it in China, but I completely get that, to where they have tiered licensing.
Yeah.
Basically, you have to start off on this bike and you get a certain kind of tag until you get enough experience under your belt. But my point here was, if that 125 was available here, our 125 that's available here now in America is doing fantastic. It's selling very, very well. That's the Honda Grom. But I want to say a Grom is $4,000. Okay, so how is a Honda Grom $4,000?
Yeah.
And this Yamaha, same size engine, both air cooled, how come it's only $1,000?
Yeah.
So I think there's a little disconnect there. And in my mind,
us Westerners, man, we're just...
It's not that we're loaded, and I can promise you Honda's not just killing it on money there.
Yeah.
I think a lot of it has to do with our Department of Transportation and our EPA, and to a large extent CARB on the West Coast, the California Air Resources Board, that they mandate how clean motorcycles have to be, and because California is such a big part of all of motorcycling, the rest of the states just adopt California's rules, and it hurts all the rest of us. And again, there's not enough motorcycles for them to be dirty enough to cause a big problem.
Yeah.
If you really want to pick on something, pick on lawnmowers.
Yeah, that's for sure. That's a good one, man. So moving forward, like with you guys, I mean, you want to talk about the new helmet coming out, or?
Sure, we can talk about it a little bit. So we got a lot of different things that have happened in the last few months. We've come out with some cool new colors and kind of surprised some people, and that's always fun. We have a good time with the limited editions.
I love how everybody's like, "Is it still available?" And it's like, you're selling it as a limited edition. Once it's gone, it is gone.
Right. So we do these production runs, and a lot of times people don't understand how long it takes to actually do a production run. A lot of times, like, we're ordering helmets right now like crazy for spring of 19 because it takes that long to make these helmets, to gather up all the raw materials, get them through production. You're making the fiberglass shells, the carbon fiber shells. So lead times are like 6 months. And, for me to bring out a graphic, and that's not to say we won't do any graphics that have multiple production runs, but for these, we decided early on that these would be a single run production. And so we bring them in. We have to order them like 6 months in advance. We bring them in, and those production runs are 402 pieces. That's like broken down in 6 per case. And they're 402 pieces, and when they're gone, they absolutely are gone. And if you embrace that and you understand it, some people get the coolness of it, because there are some guys who are like, no, that this is like a collector's item, and this is my one chance to get it. There's other people who actually get kind of mad at me. We get called names and everything else, and how stupid is it to, more people want to buy this thing. Why wouldn't you make more? And it's like, well, the guy who bought in knowing it was limited to 402 pieces, I think we would lose some integrity with him if I said, okay, I'm going to open it back up and do another production run. I think you have to do what you say you're going to do. And if I tell you we're only making 402 of these, that's all we're going to make.
Yeah.
Now we did have a color that came out on the Outlaw Bandit called Gunmetal that's done very, very well.
Yeah,
and that's an ongoing
nice
color.
one.
That's not limited to one production. That's an ongoing color. And a couple weeks ago,
the candy red one, is that limited?
Yeah,
or
no,
is that
it's not
ongoing?
limited. It's ongoing as well. So candy red. Now, here's the kicker on that. Those are Snell helmets. Okay, Snell changes their rating every 5 years. So we basically, there'll be a Snell 2020. And I'd almost promise you that those things will be around the next year and a half. And then when we get to Snell 2020, we'll probably start off with black, white, and flat black, and then fill the pipeline of the people who want those colors, and then we'll add some other colors in along the way after that. But that's a good reset when Snell does that. We can reset. But
so you have to go back and redesign the helmets and redo.
Well, there's some things that you can. They change the safety aspects of them from time to time, and you have to do some different things to meet their new specifications. And it depends. They can go either way. They can get relaxed on certain aspects of the helmet as well. So we don't anticipate that style helmet changing a great deal. But what we're working on right now, we've been working on it almost 2 years now, and we will have them at very, very limited numbers for the end of 2018, and they'll be ready to go for 2019. And more numbers is a helmet called the Mod Bandit. Some people have heard some details about it and heard rumors about it at shows and things, but I guess this would be our format where we're I'm not ready
officially
to show.
talking.
Yeah, I'm officially talking about it, en masse for the first time. We're not really quite ready to show photos or anything like that of it, but it is a helmet that people will definitely see. In the next 60 days, we probably will show it for the first time at AIM Expo, which is in October, and there'll be a physical version at AIM Expo. And in fact, I think there might be a physical version of it at AIM Expo, painted by the Fast Life Garage.
For sure.
Yeah. So I think that'll be really cool and a great introduction to the helmet. So
I'll be there signing autographs. So
nice. But it's I think everybody knows what a modular helmet is. Modular helmets have become very, very popular. They came out about in the early 80s, and they were kind of like nerdy helmets for BMW guys. BMW was the first person to bring them
It's like
in.
the adventure bike helmet.
Right, a little bit, yeah. It's a little bit different. Schuberth was the original brand that made the modular helmet, and when they came into America initially, they were actually BMW branded. And by the late 80s, BMW had decided not to bring any more because of lawsuits and liability. They decided not to bring any more BMW branded helmets in, but other people started making modulars, and it's one of those funny things that people really enjoy them, but they have a real hard time nailing down exactly why they like them. You know, there's some convenience features of them. You can lift up the face portion of the helmet and talk to the bike beside you. Maybe if you're riding slowly around your neighborhood or something, you might ride with the face lifted up on the helmet.
Yeah.
But there's some convenience features, and it still has not quite as much protection in an accident as a full face, but it still offers much more protection than an open face or a jet. I think what's unique about this particular modular, and I feel people will agree, that the Mod Bandit, while it is a modular helmet, still has all of its Simpson DNA. It very much looks like a Simpson. It's going to have a Simpson profile, just like Simpsons are now. It's immediately recognizable visually when you see it that it's a Simpson helmet. So you see it sitting across the room from us. So what do you think about it, Chase?
I love the styling of the Simpson. That's one thing that's always kind of led me to it. From a stylistic standpoint, I like helmets that have lines in it that kind of create motion or that show direction of which that thing is going. It's just like a bike. Like if you had a big round bike, it just wouldn't kind of appeal to you. Just like why a sports car has angles to it. You know what I mean? It's all about directing you in a motion. And so what I've always liked about the Simpsons, and I've fell in love more with it, is just that when it comes to painting it, it gives me something to kind of also give that direction and that flow.
Right.
And the distinctive, I don't know what you would call the mouthpiece of that thing, but that's kind of one of the things that has set Simpson, I don't even know what that shape is actually. Was it like a hexagon or something?
It's a trapezoid or something.
It's something like that.
Yeah.
So it just kind of gives you that look. And then, of course, with all the West Coast guys, the unknown dudes and everybody, it just kind of, it's been the face or the helmet, which is the face of this industry's movement with Dynas and FXRs and stuff like that. And now everybody, like we did in the first podcast, certain heads fit certain helmets and things like that. But I'm excited, man. I do feel a little nerdy sometimes wearing a modular, but I would be lying to you if I told you that I didn't enjoy the convenience of it.
Sure.
So that was my helmet before my Ghost Bandit was a modular. It was the Harley modular that I kept, and it's one of those things. Like I said, the convenience of lifting it up and being able to take a drink if you're at a light or getting gas. You don't want to undo everything, and especially if you're a chick and you got makeup on and stuff. There's ways you can, a little harder. You lift it up, put it on, then close the visor.
Right.
But I think the best part is that it keeps the Simpson profile, and I think it's going to open up the audience for, like we said earlier, an older crowd. Somebody, maybe not every kid that's getting, which a lot of kids still like to run the Outlaws. They're not, they don't even go to the Bandits yet.
Right.
I guess the Bandit's the 30-year-old helmet. I don't know.
The Ghost Bandit, right.
The Ghost Bandit,
The Ghost Bandit.
And so, I think it's going to open up the door to a lot more people, and then the changes that you've made to make it easier for headsets and stuff like that to go in it, which is becoming a huge thing in the helmet market,
Sure.
So,
yeah, I think about when I'm out in California and you're on a bike, and you can't really read a GPS as easily as you can in a car. You probably need, some of the freeways, how it is set up out there, you probably need turn-by-turn directions in your ear, or you'll never find where you're going to go. There are freeways out there just insane.
One quick turn and all of a sudden it's going the opposite direction. It's wild. But the vent profiles on there look good. I'm excited I'm just excited to get my hands on one to paint. I'm really looking forward to that. So, And then the fact that you're also going to have visors for it as well is actually very appealing as well.
Right.
So, I had so many people excited whenever y'all dropped the gold visor for the Ghost Bandits.
It was a big deal. Yeah, we had a lot of fun with that. And since gold is so popular with painters and gold leaf and gold flake, that it was just a natural. We did the gold for the Outlaw Bandit first, and it was just a natural to do it. And then for the Ghost, and there right from the very start there'll be a gold visor available for the Mod Bandit.
Yeah, I don't know what color I'm going
Absolutely.
to paint this helmet yet.
Right, that might be. And is it going to have the signature lavender pinstripe?
There we go, the lavender. Yeah, I don't know, man. I'm I was talking, I think I was talking with you earlier at lunch about how we have this run of helmets that we're almost done with. We only have 5 left. Helmets that were all ordered in April, by the way.
Right.
So we're almost done with those, and almost done with a couple big project bikes. So I'm looking forward to the freedom of being able to spend a couple days to really delve into the ideas in which I can start doing my helmets at. So, like I've been telling a lot of people, and I could be cutting my own throat with this, but I've been giving people 40% of what I'm capable of as far as a painter on my helmets.
Right.
And so, and maybe I'm just telling myself that to hype me up so that when I do better on the next ones and stuff, but once we get through with this batch of helmets, the next run of helmets, I hope that everybody that's already got a helmet from us is going to be like, dude, I want one in this style now.
Right.
So I'm going to try to evolve my style to where it's going to still be something you go, oh, that's a Fast Life Garage helmet.
Right.
But it doesn't look like the past 20 helmets that we just did. You know what I mean? So it's tough. You got to come at it with a completely different set of eyes, man.
Right.
So
I mean, we all grow, we all change, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's the whole thing, is that you've got to evolve in your style. You can't paint that same style of helmet for the next 20 years. It's not going to work for you.
Exactly. We can't still be buying iPhone 1s.
Right,
So.
right, exactly. So I think that, telling people that and putting that out there, it also puts some pressure back on you to up your game.
Well, like I was telling you before, it's like we're really not ever in my life thinking that our business would go towards more helmets, but because they're so hot, because we have the relationship we have with you guys, and because I enjoy painting these helmets, I enjoy doing it. It's like, no matter what you do for a living, there are times when you go to work and it becomes mundane. It becomes like you're going through these motions, and doing helmets and not just helmets, but like the smaller chopper tins and even the smaller Dynas and FXRs, it's just opened up the floodgates for more creativity and re-energized my enthusiasm for what I do for a living. I still complain all the time because that's what I do professionally, is complain.
Right.
But it is fun, man. It's exciting to see, and and playing with other colors, man. Like we have a great relationship with Paint Huffer, and we're trying to start implementing more of his Pearl line in with the Flake line, in with this, and what a lot of people have a problem with when it comes to picking paint jobs is they like all of it. Oh man, I like that leaf. I love the flake. Oh, I love the airbrush. Oh, but man, like a good pinstripe design here. So the giving a customer who's spending the money, which we charge a pretty penny for our paint jobs, everything they really want in one helmet, the closer we can get to fulfilling that meter of exactly what they wanted, that's where you want to get. And I just don't, man, there's certain style of helmets I don't want to fall into. Like, I don't want to get into the muraled out helmets where it's like this crazy airbrush scene.
Like a scene,
around. I want it to always have a curb appeal look.
Right.
Like, I've probably said this before, and I know I've got to have said it to you before, but just like when we're painting a bike, you have to be able to see the bike from across the parking lot and get drawn to it, and then when you get on it, be held. So the same thing with a helmet. When you have that thing hanging on the handlebar, you're like, man, look, do you see that helmet over there? Is that stock? Is that custom? Like, let's go check it out. And then you're like, dude, look. And that's what you want, man. You want it to be.
Yeah, and doing helmets, I mean, I've been working on helmet graphics for more than 20 years now, and one of the biggest challenges is having a helmet that will grab your attention from across the highway when you see a helmet go by the opposite direction. But yet when you're looking at the helmet on the shelf in the dealership, it's got to have a lot of cool little details that show up there. But if you do a lot of details that show up in the dealership in your hands, you got to be careful that from across the parking lot or across the highway, it just doesn't look like a muddy mess.
Exactly.
Your elements have to have, your elements have to be bold enough to stand out and stand on their own and not muddy up the thing. And so it sounds really easy to do, but it's not. I know it's a challenge.
Well, it's, like, I haven't had this yet, but now that I'm saying it, probably people will say it, but when you look at a paint job on a car and it's like, well, I like two-tones, but I don't want to do a two-tone the way everybody else does. I'm like, so you want to, like, two-tone down the middle of the car, one side of the car is this, like, that defeats the purpose of a two-tone. Now you just have two different color cars depending on which side you're looking at.
Right.
So there's certain things that have to flow in the direction that they're flowing. So, like, on helmets, sometimes, we like to, like, I'll do sketches and I'll explore lines going directions that is uncommon,
Mm-hmm.
But if it doesn't look right on paper and I can't envision it, then I won't do it. So the fail-safe is the direction of how the graphics flow on all the helmets I do. It works,
Right.
But you do get those people that aren't really thinking about the design perspective of it, and they just say, well, I want it to be different. Well, we all brush our teeth the same way because it works. That works,
right. So for me, I have a tendency to like asymmetric design.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that designs that are different on each side, I think they're very interesting to me. So one of my favorite sport bikes right now, and has been for years, there's a designer, his name's Ola Stengard, and he works for India now, but he worked for BMW for a long time before, and he made the design of the S1000RR, and you know that bike, and it has different headlights, and the fairing is different on each side.
That's right.
And a lot of people don't like that, but I absolutely love it because what it's also done is the design is not for aesthetic appeal. The design is you've got one low beam headlight and you've got one high beam headlight, and they need to be different shape to function perfectly. And one side of the bike has completely different radiator outlets than the other side of the bike because of how the radiator's asymmetrical on that bike and how the air flows through it. So I like that aspect of that bike because the form follows the function. The function is the most important thing. How it works and how it looks goes secondary. And I like that. And on helmets, I know it's challenging. Every single helmet, the left side matches the right side.
Yeah.
So, you'd have to make a conscious decision to say, okay, these stripes wrap completely around this helmet a different way than on the other side of the helmet.
One of my good friends, Jeremy Senor, he's also another painter that does great work. We're actually going to do a helmet swap this year. I'm going to send him a Simpson, and he's going to send me a Simpson, and we're going to paint, cross paint, or whatever you want to call it. But he's a big fan of asymmetrical stuff. Right. So I dig it as well. I just haven't had time to explore these other ideas like I was saying earlier.
Right.
And so my thing is I want to find a way to do that, which I've done. My personal helmets in the past have been that way.
Right.
I have a helmet in the car actually that's exactly that.
Right.
It's an old helmet from a long time ago. I was going to hang it up in my house.
Right.
But it is literally just like, for me, I want to sit on this table, and every angle you look at it, it creates flow.
Right.
And direction, and it looks badass. So that you can look at it from every angle. Man, I love the way that leaf is just kind of coming around here, this panel or this flake or this pinstripe or whatever the case may be. It's like, it just takes effort and design. Like just you design the helmet stuff, so you know what it's like when you're trying to create things.
Right.
Sometimes it's like, it's weeks, and then sometimes it's one beer and you got it.
So I've always been curious and haven't had a chance to ask you about this. The subjects of your airbrush. So your newest helmet that we put on Instagram today that has blown up and broke the Instagram. So it's Muhammad Ali.
Yeah.
And you've got everybody from Samuel Jackson, which is one of the first ones, that I remember seeing that you did, and tons of people in between. So when you do that, does the person who asks you to paint the helmet or commissions the helmet, do they pick the celebrity?
Yeah, they do. And you know what's really cool about it is that once you start doing it, the people's ideas, they're awesome. Usually, completely honest, most people's ideas suck bad. There's
Right.
a meme on my personal Instagram about that.
Right, okay.
But most of the time it sucks. But when what happens is with this, you get people that start thinking about it, and they'll send you a picture of a movie. You're like, holy shit, like that's a badass idea.
Right.
You know, but the only challenge is, and it's because of my limitations, is that I can only airbrush what I see.
Right.
So if someone sends me, like, fortunately, like that Muhammad Ali picture,
Yeah.
it was a very, very quality photo. So
Sure.
I can zoom in and see the pores of his skin
Right.
at the size that I needed it.
Right.
But say, for instance, I did a Clint Eastwood a couple months ago, and the picture was really bad.
Right.
And I'm not as good enough of an artist to just be able to
Right.
assume the shades, the shadows, and the tones of it. So it
Right.
kind of looks a little flatter than what this Muhammad Ali one is. And that's me. I need to get better at that stuff. But
Right.
you know, my buddy, the Jetty, the one that has four helmets, he's having a friend of mine paint one now. We did Kimbo Slice on it, and everybody
Right.
liked that.
Oh, sure. I
You know,
yeah.
and then I think coming up next, I think I still have on the docket, I have, damn, I'm drawing a blank. I have to do.
So it's easier to do modern celebrities because there's great photographs.
Yeah, like
of them. There's
anything, like
great
even
photographs.
my Samuel Jackson one, it was off of it was done from someone else's art.
Right.
So someone painted a picture of that, and I had to use that painting because that painting had the photo of that painting was more detailed than the original photos from the movie.
Sure.
So that's where that's the biggest problem is finding those quality photos and stuff. So,
Sure.
but yeah, it's fun, man. I enjoy it because, and then sometimes you can come in and add a few little tidbits to the helmet that are relative to the picture.
Right.
But realistically, I like to do the paint job is its own thing.
Right.
Maybe we can bring it like this last one, the Muhammad Ali, the yellow pinstripe, the sting like a bee, like that black and yellow
Right.
bee. This it all kind of ties in together, you know. So that's kind of the stuff I
So
like.
Samuel Jackson has on the front. It
It says bad motherfucker.
right.
And you know, there's just it's so many different things you can do. Me and my brother, you know, Jesse, we sit there at the shop sometimes and we just kick ideas.
Right.
And there's there's no way I can afford to buy enough helmets to paint all these different characters.
Right.
But you know, there's so many good movies.
Right.
There's so much good pop culture.
Right.
There's
He did Joe Dirt, right?
Yeah, we did Joe Dirt. There's so many cartoon characters, family members who've deceased or
Right.
whatever. I mean, even people putting their kids on it. There's a lot of options. I try to keep them to where that image or that saying on the front or maybe a color scheme is the only thing connecting to that subject matter instead
Right.
of like, because like I said, the completely muraled out helmets. I don't
Right.
want to do a casino theme with you know, Joe Pesci or whatever,
Right.
and
Right.
now I got to do Welcome to Las Vegas on one side and a roulette wheel. Like
Right.
that's not a paint job that I'm interested in doing, and I
Sure.
turn those down a lot.
Right. Sure.
I get those, and I think one thing for a lot of people that's real weird nowadays, and this is something that me and a lot of painters talk about, is how we have gotten to a point since most of us are painting bikes on a national level now or painting helmets on a national level, that we have the ability to say no. Like, no, that's really not my style,
Right.
but I know a guy that is into that style.
Right, and it's just like going to get get a tattoo. I mean, probably
Same thing.
Probably the premier portrait tattoo artist is Nico Hurtado. I don't know if you've seen his
Yeah,
work
yeah,
or
for
not.
sure.
But I
He's
mean,
amazing.
it's not just. I mean, he's out of this world, right? He's an alien when it comes to that. I mean, they're photorealistic. To go to him and say, "I want you to do a watercolor of a butterfly," you're an idiot.
Yeah.
But I'm sure he probably gets that from time to time.
Yeah.
He might not, but a lot of other artists. So I mean, I think when you find somebody you like to work with, whether it's a painter, whether it's a tattoo artist, or somebody who's painting and you're commissioning to put something in your house, I don't think you go to them and say, "Okay, this is what I want." You search them out because you like their style. and then you say, okay,
Give them some just direction. That's
right,
all they need.
and these are the colors.
They don't need instructions.
These are kind of the colors I want to work with.
Mm-hmm.
But it's your project. I'm hiring you because I dig what you do.
Yeah, and it's a trust thing, man. You got to trust. I mean, I have those issues because I want to have people do designs for our T-shirts that I want to come out with.
Right.
But I do design for a living, so like I'm a lot more anal than some people would be,
Right.
and I have to also myself practice what I preach and alleviate that control and let an artist be an artist. You know
Sure.
what I mean? One thing that I try to pride myself on, and I know that the artists that I recommend to people do pride themselves on, is that they're only going to take a project that they are interested in, meaning that they can do a phenomenal job at.
Right.
If it's just some random throw some colors on a helmet and just give it back to you whether you like it or not, those aren't the kind of people I recommend to people.
Sure.
And that's not the kind of work that I prefer to do. Like I would much rather make you wait.
Yep.
Or just tell you, no, I'm not interested in this project.
Right,
You know what I mean?
right, for sure.
That's
For
just
sure.
the best way to do it, personally.
Yeah.
Yeah,
For sure. So you're going to head to AIM Expo. So we're
You know
gonna,
what? I'm gonna talk. I'm gonna look at the dates. I'm gonna look at all the logistics of it.
Mm-hmm.
See if I can find someone to crash with up there. You said, usually it's not too bad to get hotels up there, but
No, I mean, well, Vegas is usually easy, and this isn't. It's a decent size event, but I mean, it's not like SEMA or like that. So there'll be hotels available, and I think is it Monster Cup,
yeah,
which is
yeah.
kind of the the MX or Supercross Open,
Mm-hmm.
and in the past I think it maybe has had a $1 million purse for the winner,
Mm.
and so that's going to be going on that weekend. So that'd be a cool thing to tie in.
I really want to go now. After talking to you about it just all day, is that I'd like to go for hopefully be able to maybe find some people from the podcast to bring
Right.
on, but also the networking in the
Right.
in the more corporate area, which I need to learn how to talk correctly to corporate people, but maybe even have to break out a collar or something. I don't know. We'll see. But I want to go. I want to check it out, and I'm excited about the new launch of these new helmets and just Simpson itself and
Yeah.
being a part of all this, and then. I love motorcycle shit, so
Right, right.
just being
No, it's a great show. It really is, and it was it's been in Orlando. Last year it was in Columbus, Ohio, and moving forward, it's actually this is a West Coast swing, so it's going to be very close to a lot of the motorcycle industry on the West Coast, but it's moving back to Columbus, Ohio next year. So
I was going to ask you. I thought it was
Yeah.
under like a couple year contract or something.
No. So, in fact, I think it was going to be in Columbus again this year because they really want to find a home for it. And the Midwest, traditionally, the big motorcycle show was Indianapolis before that one went out of business, and it did very well. So the Midwest shows do very, very well. So I think that Columbus was not available in 2018, so that's why they went to Vegas.
Mm-hmm.
But I think they're scheduled to be back in Columbus for the next few years now.
I would at least think they would wait and see how it does at Vegas before determining whether or not they won't.
Well, the challenge you have there, believe it or not, is
They couldn't have signed a 2-year contract with Vegas and see.
they have to sign many years out. I mean, it's the planning for an event that large, just the amount of detail work that goes into it.
Mm-hmm.
There are people who think those guys put the show together a month in advance, and it's like, no, man, they're working on a show that's happening 5 years from now, right now, and it's just it's pretty. It's pretty intense. So it's going to be a great show. There will be some people there that maybe don't normally attend the Midwest show that'll be out since it's West Coast. So it's definitely a little different. It's definitely worth going to. The first 2 days, Thursday and Friday, it is
Dealer only.
It's dealer and trade only. And then Saturday and Sunday, it's open to the public. And again, that's a little different than American shows typically are. It's more like the European shows are. So it's
That's
really,
also
really
like
exciting.
SEMA is.
Right. It's really super exciting. So you usually have lots of test rides, lots of new model releases there. I think there's a lot of new bikes that we'll see for the very, very first time there. I got my fingers crossed seeing some of these new HD rides there.
That'd be wild.
Yeah, because they have signed up. HD absolutely will be there, so that's pretty cool. And then before that even, I'm going to be a little bit of a road warrior here. I'm going to go to Barber Motorsports Park and for the Vintage Festival, which is a great event. And it leans more towards, instead of like the Dyna FXR guy, it's a lot of the old vintage Japanese guys that are racers that remember Simpson being a kind of a super bike helmet back in the in the 70s and 80s. And we'll be down there for Vintage Festival, and I think that's the first entire weekend, maybe like the October 3rd through like the 6th.
When's the AIM again? I thought it was.
So the AIM is the following week, and I want to say I don't have my calendar in front of me, but I want to say it's like the 11th, October 11th through like the 14th. Is that right? You looking at your calendar?
Yeah, I'm looking right now. So, yes.
Yeah.
Thursday, 11th, 12th, 13th, 14th.
Yeah. So, AIM Expo in Vegas, really something to see. If you love motorcycles, it's definitely like it's our biggest event. It's like SEMA for motorcycles, basically. So
I think I said it to you last year about one. I'd love to support that more because I think SEMA is great what it does for the car industry, but I'm not a fan of it for the motorcycle industry. It's not motorcycle.
Right.
We're just kind of like sprinkled in there.
Right.
And it'd be cool to see AIM kind of get big enough to where it has the same things like the paint companies that do custom. I mean, motorcycle. I would say that motorcycles and helmets are probably one of the most custom painted things in the world, comparatively to cars or anything like that. I mean,
most people don't custom paint their car, but just by sheer virtue of the number of cars out there, that's the thing. I mean,
it's probably more that way. Yeah. But it'd just be good to like be a part of that, and just like how SEMA is, how it's everything from off road to VIP lowered things. It's all in between. So it's AIM Expo being that way as well, from Harley to BMW or
Absolutely.
Kawasaki.
And from riders, 5-year-old kids riding dirt bikes around your yard, and even electric bikes now, which is really exciting.
I'm actually excited about those.
Yeah, I mean, if you've got a young kid and some of the electric bikes, you can literally ride in your yard.
Well, I moved back to downtown Dallas now,
Right.
so me and my wife have really been thinking about getting like a little scooter, like a little Vespa or something like that.
Sure, absolutely.
Because it's parking everywhere. It costs a lot to park, but you can usually just hop up on a curb, and sometimes the Dyna is a little bit more to rip around on. So like a little.
Well, the Grom thing is hot right now. I mean, crazy hot, and there's a lot of people doing custom stuff for the Grom. So all of a sudden, if I don't think you're really looking for more work, I think you're covered up right now. But if you wanted to be, if you bought yourself a Grom and started messing around with Grom stuff, you'd have a giant following there. And myself, I'm really excited about. I know it sounds kind of silly, but Honda has this new 125 vintage retro little, run around mini bike that's fully street legal and everything. It's called a Monkey, and there's one that comes in like this white and vintage gold, metallic gold, and it looks like it's from 1971. And I'm gonna have one of those. I gotta have one of those. It's gonna be a great pit bike, and maybe run out to the mailbox or something like that. So
that's cool. So what else is going on? Like pretty much you got that. You got the new releases coming out. Anything major for the 60th next year for Simpson?
I think we're working on maybe a special helmet that'll be a limited color, limited edition. It might be like a numbered type thing. We're still kicking around some ideas for that, but we want to make something pretty fun and bold. It's not going to be over the top serious or anything. It's going to be kind of fun. But
definitely a collector item.
Oh, definitely a collector item. For something. I mean, it's our 60th year, right? So, and I don't know. I might be retired by the time it's our 70th year, so I might need to put my mark on things now. And we've got a couple other entirely new models coming as well. So, we just keep on kind of, moving along, and as the market asks for more things, as we get more popular. We're going to have some other options and some other, brand new ground up helmets that are, a fresh design that are unlike anything anybody else has seen. So,
that's cool.
Yeah, we're pretty excited about that. So our future's really bright. We're really excited about, the opportunities and the resources that our company gives us to work with. We're Simpson Motorcycle Helmets is a real small team. It's effectively, 3 people. And, we have a large support group of other people that work on the racing side that really lend a great hand to us. But for a dedicated motorcycle team, that's all they do. There's 3 people. And but we do have lots and lots of resources, and we're going to keep bringing, I think, really badass stuff to the marketplace.
For sure. Well, cool, man. So I'm looking forward to everything next year. Hopefully, I don't see why I couldn't make it to AIM. I think I could probably pull it off. I need a vacation.
Yeah.
So, well, shit, man. I guess we'll wrap this up.
Yeah, absolutely.
Nice talking to you again.
You as well. Thanks. I guess I'm the first guest to do it twice.
No, not first guest to do it twice.
Okay. All right.
But you're the first guest.
Right. I was the first guest.
And you've done it twice.
Right,
so
right.
technically, it depends on how you start that in that sentence. So,
all right.
All right, man. Thanks
Thanks
dude.
a lot. Take care.
It is always a pleasure talking to Scott. Thank you again, my good sir. Man, that was enjoyable, right? It was fun, man. I love talking to Scott. He's a very good friend of mine. I'm thankful that by painting Simpson helmets, I've been able to meet this man and be friends with him, and it's just awesome having friends, right? Anyway, thank Scott, Simpson Motorcycle Helmets, and also I want to thank our sponsors, Texas Performance MC, TexasPerformanceMC.com, and on IG, Paint Huffer Metal Flake on IG and PaintHuffer.com, HorsepowerInc.net, Horsepower Inc. on Instagram, and Horsepower Inc. Cindy on Facebook. Also, Hard Drive Parts on Instagram and HDTwin.com if you want to get set up as a dealer. Thank all you guys for your continued support. Appreciate it. I hope you guys have a phenomenal week, and we'll get back as soon as we get some more guests on here. Maybe I should get to work, right, and not do some podcasts for a little while. I don't know. We'll see. But anyway, thank you guys. Continue to share this. If you dig it, continue to, I've just found out that if you tag me in your stories when you put this on, I can repost it on mine. So I'll do that. Thank you guys. Let's just have a rad week. Okay. Have fun.